lunch, Judy. Thanks for lunch.
Oh, you're welcome. Because when I called it in, I said Garrett, and I guess he thought I said Derek. You run out, Derek.
Do we have agenda printed? Oh, for this? Well, for the 6:30 meeting?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
How's work going? Best thing ever. Working in the business.
Mostly right now.
You got boys that are phasing it out, phasing it over.
I figured I had 3 years ago.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Pretty long.
Some days it seems longer than others. Especially when it's hurricanes in Florida and Texas.
How are you?
Good. Yes. You do work on it.
So we started last January. We started a weight loss mission. And it's now to the point where I don't need to be there. So I'm actually looking at going back to work.
What's your
I'm a
expertise?
general contractor, but I don't want to chase work. Try to chase work, so I might just have a construction.
Isn't that what Reed's doing?
Yeah, he's doing it for a hardware guy. Hardware company.
Really? Yeah, there's a lot to be said if you don't come to home. Work 12 hours a day.
Yes.
Well, I've done it before.
Yep.
I was
Sure,
building
yeah.
apartments
Usually
down at Riverton.
I've had their
My
food
last
when,
job.
more that they've catered for things. Oh, I haven't.
It's good. I mean, I like the flexibility. Not having to go to work or go whenever you want to go. I got to do something.
Is Lori still working as a nurse?
She hasn't been a nurse the whole time I've known her. She's been in management. She's a director now.
I'm sorry, I said that wrong. I didn't really realize. I was really asking if she retired.
Oh no, no. I want her to. I think she wants to work till. Which.
So Maddie, you say you're a vegetarian
Things like that
now,
with your
not
son
vegan,
happen.
or you're
Yep.
Might as well enjoy life.
I have, just about everything. that I
impossible, yeah.
thought I understood, thought I believed. I was like, I don't know. It's not like my testimony was. That's a strong.
Yep.
Strong. But some of the things I used to. But focusing more on the family and the kids are doing more things with my family. And Lois fine for that.
I used to be a big warrior.
You know what?
I used to be a big warrior.
Oh, yeah.
Last time I got
I was. I mean, you gotta be
Sure.
or not even close. Does it work for you still?
So,
Does it work for you still? That's got you.
no, that's what I'm saying. I don't really like I used to. I figured I
That's
can't
full
change
court.
anything anyway. Yeah. Or, I'm just saying I've learned. My dad still, I think, is 80 pounds.
Oh man! Wow. That's too bad. How long has it been suffering?
From Parkinson's. Probably about 12 years or so.
Is he still pretty lucid?
Yeah, he does okay. It's taking his toll on my mother. She just got put in nursing home. He'd spend his strength taking care of her. So I say he just reminds me of that thing with Stephen King where the guy just kept getting thinner and thinner.
Oh
and thinner.
yeah,
But
yeah.
he doesn't weigh 100 pounds.
That's rough. Sounds like Lori's our stepdad. It's a muscle eating syndrome. It's not a condition. I mean, it's not a disease. It's kind of like Lou Gehrig's.
I was gonna say,
And he's just wasting. It's literally his arms and legs are literally skin bone.
Yeah, my dad's the same way.
I was gonna say you need to check with the chief law enforcement officer of the county.
They'll call me on the phone.
No.
He knows it. Wow.
That's got to be frustrating.
I look at you as more that.
Wish I could understand.
You're,
Yeah, my dad's the
What?
same way.
don't know.
He abused his body pretty.
Yeah, he let us know he wasn't gonna be here. He's not coming.
He's in a skilled nursing facility in Rapid City, South Dakota. And when I call him, you just never know how it's going to go. Right? Is he going to be with us
But you don't
today,
have
or
to
is he-
prosecute.
But
If someone gets picked up, you
it's
can
hard to
say,
understand.
never mind.
After the last time I was in medical care, I was like, this is
You balance each other.
And you've been generally successful at it?
general.
She's on to you, Dustin.
Jeremy,
Steve Israel.
Do you want to bring up the Mountain Green one? I'll start there. I kind of think so I can kind of talk for a little bit. For those that are new on the Planning Commission, we went over the guiding principles as well as the land use, because those things are probably the most important, or that's what people are more interested in. The beginning part of it was mainly data, so we didn't really review that because it is what it is. We made a few changes on the guiding principles. So when he brings it up, I can kind of let you know the changes we made on the Mountain Green. And you notice Peterson and Mountain Green are very similar as far as future land use designations are the same. The guiding principles are pretty similar, but they are two separate plans. And on the Mountain Green one, if you could, about page 31, you can get to it. Okay. Let's see. On this one, on the Mountain, oh, you're on the Peterson one. Can you, like I say, they're a lot of the same. So if you have those that are the newer, if you have came across anything in your reading that you have a question about or a recommendation for a change, don't like, okay. The one thing here that the change was made was under maintain the town's resident-focused community. There's a thing in there we want inserted regarding short-term rentals that want to be discouraged. Don't know the language yet, but that was brought up, that they're not happy with the situation in Mountain Green with short-term rentals.
Plan to enforce that. How do we plan to enforce that with the short-term rentals or discouraging them?
It would probably end up being a code change eventually. Yep.
There does need to be a code change. Those that are currently already there would have to be grandfathered as they've predated any code change. We're still in discussion of the code change in general and what kind of enforcement we really can do. I don't have an answer for you right now.
Wouldn't that more or less just be how strictly the governing body and the planning commission adhere to those principles whenever they look at something?
It'll also be reflective of the actual change itself. I don't know what form that's going to take. I can't say how we would enforce it. We do have enforcement policies that we use right now for code enforcement issues around the county. We'd probably still use those same ones, but I just don't know what level of enforcement I'll be asked to do.
Well, you would see them on rental websites. Like if they were Airbnbs and VRBOs, it's pretty clear where they're located and who's doing it, unless they're doing it privately.
Yeah, but state statute doesn't allow me to go look. Maybe Garrett can speak to that.
If a
It
neighbor
limits-
reports, yeah.
It limits government entities from searching websites to find those, but if there's a complaint or if there's a third party that were to do that, then the county could enforce based on information coming, not based on a county employee going and doing that research. Additionally, this is kind of a hot topic at the state legislature, and I believe it probably will continue to be, especially gearing up to the Olympics. And so I think whatever the working group that's pulling together the text amendment right now, whatever they put in, it could be overruled by the state as well. And so I think that we would just adapt as the state changes and modifies their laws. We would just have to follow suit if there's superseding language, which typically there is for something like housing.
Thank you. So on this page, it talks about the guiding principle of maintaining a small town feel, maintain the town's resident-focused community, preserve open space, mountain views, dark skies, embrace the mountain town character and aesthetic. And on the next page, is guide growth to appropriate locations, ensure quality and compatibility, and support property rights. So those are the guiding principles for the area plan. Those sound appropriate, especially those that live in Mountain Green?
I'm taking notes.
Yeah, I think we can agree with those. Okay, on the next page, if you want to go to next page, 33, just create a great town center. The first one is create a cohesive and attractive town center, create a sense of place unique to Mountain Green, and create a town square as a center of Mountain Green. The one, and then that was walkable and friendly. It was brought up that everyone felt Mountain Green is missing a main street, and so they'd like some language encouraging a main street. The D8, the DAT, it was called, Design Assistant Team, designed a main street in Mountain Green, and everyone liked that and liked the feel. It never got implemented, but I think people would like it, that possibility, so they want that maybe in the area plan to encourage a main street type of development in the town center somewhere. Okay, the next page on 34. Oh yeah, there's the DAT. And there's the, thank you, Jeremy. That's available on the website, the DAT, if you're curious. DAT professionals from all over the country come in and design the town center of Mountain Green. Okay, thank you. Okay, page 34 is increase amenities and livability to strengthen the relationship with Snow Basin, anticipate future Olympic Games, increase public access to trails, and increase public parks and gathering spaces. Again, all good principles. In the review, no one had an issue with any of those. Okay, next page. Proactively address the issues, reduce the property tax burden on residents, address housing affordability, manage tourism, smart and sustainable infrastructure. Those are all lofty goals. I don't know how we achieve them. But I guess a general plan can be lofty. Okay, thank you. The next was maybe framework plans, and there was really nothing in there. It talks about the new interchange, the town center. If you, let's see, we'll get down to page 39. Kind of shows the framework and the connectivity between Peterson and Mountain Green, and that's assuming the interchange goes both ways. We don't know that yet. So if the interchange doesn't go both ways, we won't have that connectivity with Peterson. And so things will have to adapt or change, but right now that's what it's suggesting for framework.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question?
Sure.
The town center area, it's being developed as we speak. Do we know if those developments are kind of sort of consistent with these concepts, or? I mean, obviously you couldn't hold them anything because the plan's not in place, but.
Sorry. That's part of the confusion between the general plan and the zoning ordinance. So the general plan has sections of town center where they'd like some of these concepts from the general plan, but the zoning ordinance also has town center zoning, and so what's being developed right now is according to the town center zoning, not necessarily what was in the general plan. Clear as mud?
No,
This is why when the new general plan is put together, I would recommend we move away from copying our zoning districts as designations of future land use as well.
Okay. Oh, you've pulled up the zoning and that, okay. If you want to go, the next is the actual land use. Okay, if we can draw, okay, 43 is just a general. If we can get down to page 45, it talks about the land uses and the designations. The main part, that yellow, is the mountain residential, and later in the doc, it does spell out what the density is for each of these zones. So if you look at this map, if you have any concerns, just bring it up with what it is recommending for on the future land use map. And pretty much Mountain Green kind of is what it is right now. There's not much left that is not under a development agreement or something, so we'll do the best we can. If you look, we have some, I think, some Valley residential. Okay, oh, yeah, go back up. If were you on the mountain residential? I didn't look up. Yeah, the mountain residential, these are lots 1/4 acre, lots 2, 3+ acres. What's good about this is it's not, this general plan is not specific. Our current general plan is very specific on what zones, almost, I mean, very delineated, that this is R1, well, ranch residential 1, I can't remember what they call it in the future land, ranch residential 5, very specific, where this says, okay, in this area you can have anywhere from the 1/3 up to, 3 acres plus, depending on infrastructure, depending on topography, soils. So this is our current future land, and see, it's very delineated exactly. And sometimes everyone gets focused on exactly where that line is drawn. And if it's across the street, they say no go. Where this one has a lot more flexibility. Thank you. Okay, and then Valley Residential is a little denser. It can go down to 1/5 acre to 1/2 acre. The larger lots are allowed, of course, so it, again, depending on topography, infrastructure. And these can have townhomes in the Valley Residential, in appropriate locations. Okay, the Flex neighborhood. And these are the average densities, range from 3 to 10 net units per acre. And with the Flex neighborhood, there is some commercial allowed. There's just a lot more flexibility. allowed in the flex neighborhood. Where the other was mainly residential, this does allow for some possible commercial. And this is where I would like, you'd more envision a Main Street type of situation in these areas. Where you have both commercial and residential together, and a variety of housing types. And I don't see any.
Just out of curiosity, Madam Chair, I know it doesn't show it on there. Do they make any provision for like buffering areas between the different areas?
They have just the denser zone or future land uses in the center, and they gradually get less dense as they move out. So I guess they buffer themselves that way.
Okay.
But I don't see any flex in Mountain Green. As over in Peterson, they have some, and then over across the freeway at the Peterson off-ramp would be the Bowman Ranch up there. They have some that flex zoning. Okay, next. The next one is the town center mixed use. And it's kind of on the map that they show. It's kind of in the town center, the junction of Old Highway Road and Trappers Loop, kind of basically our town center designation now. They are recommending. And this has the mixture of housing types and the commercial, pretty much what our current zone is allowing. So, the next page, okay, there's a little bit of flex that's showing up in Mountain Green, kind of where the interchange is going to be. Hard to tell, but is that what it is?
Our commercial highway is
Oh,
Paul subdivision.
yeah, Paul subdivision down there. That's already done, except for there's some homes there, yeah. You're right, there, bring it in. Thank you. And we already have that, except for the few homes that are left there. Okay, thank you. And then that has a different color. That's a flex commercial and residential in Mountain Green. And that would be the fields that are left between Old Highway Road and the interstate. If you're familiar with those fields. Okay, and then light industrial. Again, if you want to zoom in on that, that's kind of across from the airport. Which it already is, the Scotsman and some of Browning ground. Okay, and we'll move on to the business park, which is the rest of Browning's. And Browning's is probably the biggest tract that's undeveloped right now. in Mountain Green. And I think our current future land use map, I don't know the exact, it's called campus, what's it called? Or TP, a lot larger. Does it go up into, it takes all of Browning in up into, too close to the reservoir? Yeah, this is Business Park. That's, it takes in more of Browning. Yeah.
So, part of the issue between the future land use map proposed in the Mount Green area plan and our future land use map compared to the zoning map, a lot of that's already zoned light manufacturing. So, to get people to rezone away from light manufacturing and to go to mountain residential, which the Mount Green area plan shows a lot of this as, good luck. I don't see people zoning away from light manufacturing to pick up residential. That would be that would be a classical mistake economically.
Okay, thank you. And after Business Park, they have River Residential. And this is between the freeway and the river. 'Cause the river kind of is the boundary between Mountain Green and Peterson. So, don't know how much development, because access is a problem over the tracks and that, so I don't really see development happening there easily. Okay, and then to finish up, we have airport and the Civic. So that's the major things in Mountain Green. Did anybody have any concerns with the zoning, the future land use map designations? I call it zoning. Is recommending for Mountain Green?
No, I think at some point we may want to look at some different densities or things like, get down into the weeds maybe a little bit. Another discussion.
Okay,
Do you mean like tighter ranges? Like where we have like a 1/4 acre to 3+? Is that like what you're saying?
Something along, yeah.
Like
along those
more
lines.
dialed in.
Right.
So you don't have someone with a 1/4 acre and someone with 10 by them.
Yeah. Yeah, and that obviously that's gonna be a big topic, right? As we meet with the neighbors or whatever, that's gonna be, density's gonna be, the thing, understandably.
General plans are typically supposed to be just that, general in nature, not super dialed in, not specific. The current general plan is very specific. On the designations, it's basically a 1-for-1. You got one land use designation pretty much for each zoning designation we have, which is not real general. The general plan future land use map designations should have some overlap in their densities to allow some flexibility and to create that ability to buffer between the different land uses.
The one thing that just occurred to me as I was reading this, unless we have a large tract that's being developed as a unit, what would stop a smaller developer from coming in? Well, it's this low amount to this high amount. Well, I want to come in at this high amount. I understand that there are other things that factor in, right? Other considerations, but when there's such a wide range, like I said, unless there's a large tract coming in, it'd be hard to have more control over. I mean, because I can imagine we want a mix, right? We don't want from 1/4 acre to 3 acres, or from 1/10 of an acre to whatever. And so, I'm just wondering how we could, and I said tighten it up, but maybe there's some way that we can maybe give some control over, because other than that, what use is it, right?
I can see your point. There does need to be different ranges to allow that flexibility, and maybe there needs to be additional designations. Some of the general plans I've written would include a very low density, low to medium density, then a medium density, and then a high density. And then some included a very high density, which
Yeah.
would get into 25, 30 dwelling units per acre.
Right.
So, but each of those designations had a little bit of an overlap to create that
Transition.
ability to transition and buffer. Yeah.
I just think that, and I don't know how that mechanism is yet. I've spent, unfortunately, a lot of time on that, but I think that is something that we should consider.
That's also kind of one of the issues with the way the general plan is laid out currently. The area plans for these areas have been relegated to the appendices, and so when you're reading through the document, it doesn't really say, "Oh, check the appendix." The appendices are like the last place you look for useful information.
Yeah.
It's kind of where I would put like research that has been completed that has helped us reach the conclusions of what's in the general plan. And so with the new general plan coming up, my recommendation is that we incorporate each of the area plans, maybe as a different beast, into the main document itself. And so each area is important to the citizens of the county. So I don't think they should be relegated to the appendices, but there's got to be a way to figure out how to put it into the body of the text. And that's something I'm going to have to work on. But they shouldn't be in the appendices. So everything we're going through right now, technically, if it were going to be adopted tomorrow, would still be adopted as part of the appendices. And I just don't think that's where you want to put useful information. That's just me.
But do you want to break the news about next year's budget with the general plan tentative?
They're tentatively giving me roughly $200,000 to have the general plan drafted.
Countywide?
Countywide, not city, county. And then I'm going to be in control of that. So hopefully I'll be able to direct how it's written, how many public meetings we have, how many charrettes we hold, how many mapping sessions we hold, leading up to even the drafting of it. But I'd like to see it completed, by the end of next year. But I mean that's exciting that they're at least thinking of allocating that money to
Become a priority.
Yeah.
That's great.
'Cause it's going to be almost 25 years since the last general plan, so it's a little outdated.
Yeah.
Should be at least every 10 years, as recommended. So I think the goal is to try to get these area plans done so that information can be given to who's ever going to be putting together the general plan and writing it. They can incorporate, like you say, information actually into the general plan.
So should we put a timeline together?
Well,
If
I'm going to put it out for bid, and then as part of the bids that come in, I'm going to have them propose a timeline of the public meetings, the public hearings, the charrettes, and when they're going to get me the final document. But I'm going to leave it up to those companies that bid to do that.
But in terms of incorporating these area plans into the,
Well,
obviously
technically,
the sooner the better.
the only area plans that I have seen are the Mount Green Peterson, and I
Stoddard.
was given the Stoddard area plan. That is all. So, if there are other area plans, I couldn't tell you.
Well, you would know, wouldn't
I think Steve Wilson worked on the Porterville one, but I haven't seen that one. I don't know if the
Just
Milton
threw
one
you
got
under the
done.
bus. That's all right.
Um,
Let's do it.
But I know the Enterprise one did not. Chris Mayerly left before the next planning commissioner was appointed, and so that one I don't think was done. Yeah, so Croydon, I haven't seen that one yet either, I don't think. Did you send that to me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go back and see if I can find it.
It was a rough draft. I just wanted you to
Oh,
review it. There wasn't
okay.
anything final. I need to resend it.
And I think
That'd
the
be good.
Milton, Shane said it was done.
I think
But-
we've got a rough draft of it. I'll follow up on it.
Another thought I have on kind of the guiding principles of this, and I'd love open discussion here, is preserving ridge lines as well as east-facing slopes, trying to make sure, no offense to Bountiful, but we don't end up like that someday. And I think to Blaine's point, maybe, thinking about where those densities are in relation to ridge lines and east-facing slopes, just when you're pulling in off of 84, like we want to keep it mountain green, the beautiful. So that's a thought I have, and I don't know if that's something, I know we can talk about maybe text and code change on that at some point. I know that's been discussed, but even just putting that as a guiding principle. I also think reading a lot of the feedback forms that was commonly said in talking about future developments. I think a lot of people said, hey, we're not anti-development. We're anti, these specific principles really changing the community. So that's just kind of feedback I think that has been repeated.
It is mentioned in this, it's on page 74, so.
Okay, my bad.
Preserve view sheds, and it talks about ridge lines, so that's, I had remembered that I had read it somewhere, and I just found it, so.
74, okay.
That's good. Yeah, he has it up for preserve view sheds.
Do we anywhere, I haven't seen it, define in our code what we consider a ridge line and how we define?
No.
Is that something we can work on?
It would go into design review criteria if we want to start really working on design review. We've got some standards for commercial. We've got a few standards for, multifamily, some residential, but they're nowhere near where we define a ridge line versus, the view sheds and stuff. So there's nothing in our code that would require, that I could use to require a development to follow that.
And that's interesting, it's the perspective of where you are, where that ridge line is. So how are you going to define where you're actually standing or viewing? 'Cause when you're up close to it, it's different than if you are a half mile away. So it's,
Yeah, I looked at a couple, I think it was Virginia. I was looking at some other counties' codes and how they've defined it, and it's based off elevations and certain setbacks and all those things. So I think we maybe could look at some other counties that have had similar challenges and try to implement.
My recommendation, given the number of text amendments that I've already been given to do, some of this I think is going to have to come through a full rewrite of our code. And I don't know if you want to bring that up to the county commissioners this year, since they're allotting money for the general plan. But I was going to bring it up the following year to get some funding to start doing that.
I would think, though, that because the general plan, implementation of the general plan is so much dependent on the code, right, the land use and the zoning ordinances, that would be, well, if we don't have the ordinance to back up or to implement.
Yeah, no, not necessarily. So the general plan is really a vision of how you want the community to grow, irrespective or regardless of what the zoning map shows. There's got to be some relation, but like when you draft a general plan, you're not looking at the zoning map to determine what future land uses you want. I mean, there's got to be some consideration of the residential versus commercial, but I've written 13 general plans in my career, and I've never done a review of the existing zoning because it changes so often. You go out and you do a survey of existing zoning, and by the time you get back, it's changed. So you want to look forward with a future land use map that is not only looks at relatively where the residential is, the high density, the low density, the commercial and the industrial, but you need to look forward to see growth potential in areas that maybe haven't had any commercial. There's got to be some potential for growth. For instance, when I first started here, I gave out a handout to all the planning commissioners about things that they should talk to their committees about. And one of those was, well, in these areas that have never had commercial, there probably are some properties there that could benefit from some neighborhood commercial or some growth that might help create different nodes in the county. And I don't know if they took that to heart or if they used that or not, but each of these areas is considered an economic area. Right now, most of them are farms, agriculture, large lot residential, but you know, in those areas there are home occupations that include auto repair. There are home occupations in there that include laser graphics and other stuff that we see come through. So it's not that there aren't commercial entities in there already, but they're just operating out of their homes. So with that said, I don't think we need a zoning ordinance to craft the future vision of the county in general. We're going to look at the general plan when land use applications come in, and the more goals and policies and ways to implement those that we put in the general plan help me and the planners in our job when we want to recommend approval or denial. It can only help, but it's not necessarily needed to draft the general plan. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. I just, if you know, with so much thought and preparation go into these plans as and I get it, right? They're general, right? And they're not designated hard lines, but the more teeth, the more, yeah, this is not just some of these might be guidelines, some of these might say, yeah, no, we really do want this. And it's things like that I think you will want to consider at least.
Yeah, that's true. But just, it's important to understand that the general plan offers no teeth, period. It's a guideline. It's a roadmap. The county commission can choose to follow it or not. The teeth that we have are the ordinances that are adopted as part of the zoning ordinance. The zoning is what gives us our teeth, but it's also what gives the property owner their entitlements.
Thank you, Josh. I think with view sheds, I can maybe research. I've seen, I don't know if it was in the DAT, one of our documents shows that view shed and shows how
How they define it?
how you kind of define it, but how you position the homes and that along the slopes and that to preserve your ridge lines. It's not saying you can't build up on the hillside, but they just don't want the silhouette of the house
On the top of the
with
ridge
the
line.
blue sky behind it. But then again, it's perspective from which angle you're looking where you'll get that ridge line. But I can look, I'll try to do some research, but yeah.
Sweet, thank you.
Yep, there, thank you. It's in the DAT, so yeah. That kind of. Give an example on how you can develop on the hillsides.
So it says in there, protect ridgeline development, so it shows the actual ridge, right, on to the right of that illustration. It's really small, but it says protect ridgeline development.
Yeah, yeah.
So you wouldn't build the house, because.
You wouldn't up on top there,
of a
right.
ridge. Yeah.
They talk about, again, the height, color, orientation, and how that can help, so. That's something that can be incorporated into the general plan, too. Or some other definition that you can find. We can bring it in.
I can research that a little bit more,
Research,
because
yeah.
I was looking at some other counties, what they put in their plan and then their text. And then another question, about the town center. there ever been talk about like a rec center? Has that ever been a discussion? I'm new here.
Wasn't there a club in that
There-
commercial highway?
There was going to be a rec center, but it was going to be a private one that was going to be put in, but it never
Gym?
happened.
Okay.
But as far as the county building a rec center, no. In Mountain Green, no. It hasn't. The public has talked about it, but the county has never talked about it.
It would make sense to be maybe in that town center or in that Peterson like flex area,
Yeah,
that high density, if that were ever to be a discussion, because they both seem like easy access points from the new interchange.
right. If you want to go back to page 65. Yeah, on page 65, it talks about the parks, recreation, open space. It talks about the difference between private and public parks. It recognizes that public parks means tax dollars have to maintain it, pros and cons. It also talks about maybe the county buying property for future parks, trails, and for open space, but again, I don't see the county having the funds to do that, but again, another lofty goal. If you really want to preserve the open space, then you need to buy it. Okay. And on page 67, I mean, this is very loose. It kind of represents where they think parks and trails. They have trails going along the creeks and the river. And we've heard over and over again the public wants trails. And I think this plan kind of acknowledges trails kind of have to come with development, because with so much private property, you're not going to get the trail until that ground is developed. But when the ground is, it encourages that you start connecting sections of trails. So you got to start somewhere. The first trail might not be that long, but you got to start somewhere. I know in Peterson we've had 2 subdivisions go in along the river and no trails, but we didn't have the tools. They were standard subdivisions, so you couldn't require the trail be built. And hopefully we'll start having tools that we can, encourage that, with maybe some increased density to get those public trails. And I think if you want to drop down to planning principles and design strategies, it talks about clustering. This is on page like 71, 70, 71. The type of development. And we have a tool that we put the planned community, which allows to be more creative. Right now, we just have a standard subdivision. We just had standard subdivision or the resort special district. That was it. There was nothing in between. And so if you wanted to have some flexibility in your subdivision, different lot sizes and amenities and that, we really didn't have the tools, but this planned community, the PC zone, gives us the tools that we can do these planning principles and design standards. Just a way to handle growth. Okay, thank you, Jeremy. And toward the end of this, on page 76, it talks about commercial and multifamily architectural design. We do have these standards already in our code that may need to be tweaked, but has design standards for okay. Let's see, time-wise. Then move on to Peterson, it talks about, if you want to drop down to page 87, we're going through real quick, it's talking about the town center. And again, it envisions the Main Street too, but it is our hope that Mountain Green will have a Main Street somewhere, a walkable sense of place, feeling, a gathering spot.
Josh, do you see this working out with having like a walkable Main Street and town center based on not just our general plan, because I know it's like lofty, but realistically?
Realistically, with the current development going in, no.
And there's not much we can do about that.
Not really. I mean, most of the property that I would consider the downtown Mountain Green either already has a development agreement attached to it with their own standards of development, which would include the Mountain View. I think it's called Mountain View Ranch. No, the Wayne Johnson's property. What is it? Mountain View. Look it up on a.
At the bottom of the Highlands.
Yeah, on the south side of Old Highway Road. Go to our zoning map.
The one that,
think
with the
that's
development agreement in
Future
place.
land use.
We have ground available, but it's up to the developer and the owner of the property to decide if they want this type of development or not, and there's nothing we can do to force
that?
them.
Oh, the Mountain Green Village. Sorry.
See, there's a big chunk there, but they're,
Yeah, but then you have. So the Mountain Green Village is a huge part of what I would consider where the downtown would be.
yep.
Then you have the basin, which is Rome, on the northeast corner. You have townhomes going in right where the cursor is. There is some town center that was rezoned in 2023 north near the cemetery, but that's kind of away from Old Highway Road, so I don't know if that would constitute as a downtown. Yeah, I'm not sure if it'll happen. The hope is that it will, but based on our current zoning ordinance and the current development agreements, I don't think it.
Josh, wasn't there some flex space or town center further east on Old Highway Road here?
Yeah, there were.
It was a
That was-
recent rezone.
That was part of. Yeah, so there's some town center down there. We have, if you go, can you show them where the Loop Village? In the blue. Yeah, so Loop Village is, we have an application in right now for concept plan for that property for townhomes. The way they're proposing it design-wise would not create a Main Street. I can't talk about what I've seen for the proposal for the town center to the south, the Nelson rezone, just because they haven't submitted and they've asked me not to discuss it, so I can't really talk about that. I know there's been some property that's been developed as well, purchased by certain individuals that I can't really talk about either, but I don't see that coming in as a Main Street either, so. I
So
just-
mostly townhouses is what you're saying is going to be where we had kind of said the town center would be.
All town center property, zoning wise, is required to have 35% commercial.
Okay.
Is that, no, reversed. 35% residential.
No, you're right, commercial, 35 commercial.
Yeah, okay.
So I called and asked you about this the other day.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it is required to have 35% commercial and the rest is residential. My brain tonight, I'm sorry.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah, there you go. And it's part of a development agreement that they have to get approved through the county commission.
So there is a possibility out there, but county does not have control over that situation. It would be nice. I think the shocker of this area plan was the average price of homes in Mountain Green Peterson area was over $900,000.
You also have to remember that that information that they pulled was not this year or last year. I believe it was pulled in 2022.
It was during the pandemic, I think, when he was doing it.
Or even earlier, yeah.
Yeah, 21. Yeah, it was. Yep, they're 900,000. So yeah, and so it's probably even higher now. So that's it. Well, there's more for Mountain Green. A lot of it's on implementation, and he has lots on demographics and strategies. So with the Mountain Green that we've summarized, I'd kind of like to move it to a public hearing to get the public input, and then a decision from us whether to forward it on, either with a positive or negative recommendation to the county commission. Like I say, like Josh pointed out, it's been submitted for quite a few years, but need to get it going. And if you could let me go over to the Peterson. And again, a lot of the same guiding principles. If you can, let's see, we'll just drop down to land use, and we kind of saw it a little bit with Mountain Green. I'm getting there to get a page number. Get it down. Okay, well, okay, on page 47, it talks about the Valley Residential. It shows where it is over in Mountain Green. It shows there in Peterson, kind of surrounding Hines. You see that brown? That's the Valley Residential where is recommended, and that's the 1/5 acre lots over to half. The caveat, Peterson does not have a sewer system. So the smallest we can go that has a water system is 1/2 acre. And this general plan, this area plan does recommend that it eventually, so we're not having so many septic tanks in Peterson, that is not good, to maybe either try to look at the feasibility of connecting to Mountain Green and being incorporated in that sewer district, or put in their own package system, I think it's called, to deal with the sewer.
Yeah, there's package plants that developments could put in as part of their development to take care of the sewer. With the I-84 interchange going in, it might be a good idea to discuss maybe having UDOT install sleeves under I-84. That would allow for the connection of utilities north to south, but I don't know if that'll happen.
Yeah.
But we should bring it up.
There already yeah. I was going to say Wasatch Peak's already bore underneath, but yeah.
They did,
probably,
yeah.
That's, quite an expensive endeavor, so that's excellent, good idea to.
Yes. The amount of money that I don't know the exact number, but the amount of money that I would assume that they've spent for boring.
Under the river, railroad, and freeway.
For as far as they've bored, up and down the different canyons. Yeah.
Right, but that's a good idea. I'll file that away, but to show in Peterson Valley Residential, but right now, the smallest it could be is 1/2 acre. The current infrastructure. And then the flex, you have some that, again, if the interchange goes both ways. There'll be some closer to the interchange, as well as down around Hines, which already is zoned commercial, and again, across the freeway on the Bowman Ranch. They're recommending a flex development with maybe possible some commercial mixed in with variety of residential. But again, that is dependent on sewer. Okay. In town and flex, there isn't any in Peterson. We've been over flex commercial. I think we are done. The main go up, the big one is that mountain residential in Peterson. And it's pretty much above the canal, Weaver Basin Canal, and below Wasatch Peaks. They're recommending that has that mountain residential zone. Again, as small as a 1/4 acre, but that's is dependent on infrastructure. So, any concerns, heartburn? And I don't know how to address I guess we just wait to see which way the interchange goes and change the plan accordingly. I don't think UDOT's made up their mind yet. Okay, anything else discussed? Again, Peterson's the same with trails, open space, just encouraging to be proactive in preserving the open space and providing trails and parks. These are well-written documents for area plans. Very well done. A lot of research done into it.
There were a few changes I requested that he did not put in. I will point that out. It's not good to show on a document areas that are designated as open space, because that technically tells the property owner that the value of their property has been reduced to 0, and that could be seen as a regulatory taking. So I did ask him to remove the areas that are, hey, this is going to be open space from the maps. That didn't happen.
Okay.
It is okay to put asterisks where it's a general kind of, maybe somewhere in this area it might occur, but it's more important to put in policy statements like we want 3 acres of park open space per 1,000 residents, as opposed to showing a nebulous area on a map that this area is going to go open space, because in the property owner's mind, you've just now made it worth 0, and that's not good.
Okay. And we probably bring this one forward to Peterson for a public hearing. And when can that be calendared?
I'd probably request November, since the meeting's in October. We've got a lot coming up, so I'd have to look at exactly how many items we have. I know the first meeting in October we've got 5 items. The second meeting, I think we have a few as well. So maybe we can discuss an exact date to bring it forward another day, if that's all right.
Okay.
Or shoot for November.
Okay.
That's far enough out, we can kind of plan for that.
Okay. Thank you. is, and now I can't remember what it was. Oh, this is probably about our 5th meeting we've had with these area plans. And when the public comes, they have to understand they've been advertised appropriately. We haven't done this in darkness, but we've had a couple of work meetings. Our first meeting was to receive the input from the public. Didn't get much input. I don't think that, yeah, but we've had multiple meetings, so we're not just springing it on the public. But they will have it'll be noticed appropriately the 10 days in advance to get the public out. Anything else? Concerns or things you think need to be in these area plans? Especially Mountain Green. 2 Mountain Green people.
Like I said, I think I know we talk about view sheds, but maybe whether that's a guiding principle or some way to actually enforce that, and it sounds like this is more of a guiding principle. So that, and then the town center and flex centers, I think would be nice if those could actually come to life. I think that's something that the residents of Mountain Green really feel. But I do appreciate, I will say, like, I think that it's well done in the sense of, like, clustering density, keeping them off of thoroughfares. So I think it's actually very well done. Now, will it come to reality? That's to Josh's point. We'll see. But I don't know how you feel, Blaine, Mountain Green guy. I've talked a lot about it, so.
No, the one I think would be helpful. Do you have an overlay, or can you create an overlay that shows areas that have already got a development agreement or development applications so that we can maybe look at?
It's a great idea.
Yeah, it's already on the zoning map.
Okay.
They're usually outlined.
Yeah, so Snow Basin is outlined in blue up there. Directly to the east and south, or go back up to Snow Basin. East and south of Snow Basin, that's where the Nine Springs Ranch would be located. They're going through the process right now. I don't know if they're going to get approved or not. I'm not going to even go there. To the east, you see that oval? That's the airport overlay zone. Underneath that is a lot of the cottonwoods. Cottonwoods had 9 phases. I believe they've done most phases except for 6, 8, and 9. They're working on 7 and 5 right now. I think 6 is completed. 6 has issues with elevation, 8 has issues with elevation, and 9, I believe, is owned by other parties now, who I don't know if they want to develop it or not.
And 6 and 8, other parties.
Yeah, there is a development agreement amendment coming forward at your next meeting to pull property out of Phase 9, out of the development agreement completely. So that'll be up to you to make a recommendation whether to approve that or not to the county commission. But that's at your next meeting. Then you have Rome, and next to Rome you have Rollins Ranch. Rollins Ranch is not completely built out. There's some issues there with their open space we're trying to work through with the HOA and the property owners. South of Rome, you have the Mountain Green. Why can I not remember it? Mountain Green Village. Mountain Green Village. Further to the west, you have the Canyon View Commercial and Canyon View Commercial West, which is currently being developed. And then you have a town center zone that was rezoned, but there's no development agreement in place yet. They need to bring that forward and take that to Planning Commission and then County Commission. There's some town center property there that doesn't have a development agreement yet. And then you have Whisper Ridge, which is developing right now. So it'll show you all the subdivisions as well as all the development agreements.
What's this map called? The zoning map?
That's the zoning map. Yep.
Okay, and in these area plans, they do have the implementation. It does recommend ordinances that the county needs to put in place to affect the change that this area plan is recommending. So there's some implementation tools. If we want to, we can tighten them up. But on these next steps, okay, thank you. Tell us, the county, how to implement this area plan, or general plan. Okay. Anything else? Take a quick break before our meeting starts at 6:30.
Can we discuss at our meeting the roof color? Because I know Blaine brought it up in the code that it can't be blue.
I'm sorry, what?
I pulled up your email. It says the statement was not countered in the meeting. 155.152C1, general design concepts read, colors that conform to natural beauty should be used to maintain the scenic nature of the current community.
But that doesn't restrict blue, does it? It doesn't specifically say blue is not allowed, right?
But I thought you said there's nothing in our code that can restrict what colors.
We could have ourselves.
You could have made a recommendation, but there's nothing in our code that would say you can't do blue.
Okay. I drove by a Golden
mean,
West brown roof the other day, so I got really mad.
Okay. It's
Maybe
a
if you
brown
said
roof,
earth
though.
colors, because I think like blue is like the sky can be blue, and I think that's Josh's point. Is there's nothing that
We'd have to change the code to
limit.
Ruby.
No,
yeah,
but-
Ruby's an earth color, yeah,
But I
turquoise.
think what I was trying to say is we could. There's something that,
Well-
it is a review consideration.
I mean, you can make a recommendation that they change it, but you have no teeth to enforce it. So they can say, thank you for your recommendation, no. Right? The only way to enforce or to have teeth to push something a certain way is to write the code in such a way that it gives you those teeth. And our code doesn't have that right now.
So extending that a little bit, if, and this is just kind of an out there question, right? What good are design criteria or design reviews, right, if there's nothing really that can be done?
Well, I didn't say there's nothing that could be done. I said you have to write your zoning ordinance in such a way that you have the teeth to enforce it.
Right, but currently,
Currently, no.
right. Okay.
But there is a process to amend the code,
Mhm.
and so if there was something that was more specific of earth tones, earth brown tone, or like maybe it's more specific that way.
Neutrals.
Right.
Like earth
And my
neutrals.
point wasn't that blue is good or bad. My point was.
That was my point.
this
That's
is-
okay. I'll own that.
This is something that,
yeah,
and,
what can we enforce and what
Yeah.
can't?
right, and I know that Josh and Jeremy are overwhelmed, but as we see more and more commercial development, it seems like we would want to get ahead of that in terms of ordinance clarifications, or it's just what you want, it's more work.
I would take more money to hire a consultant to rewrite it. But again, that's going to take money.
I think that there are potential new hires with the budget process. I know that my deputy attorney has been doing a lot of rewriting to assist in that process just because we work so closely together. But we are hoping to get through the ones that were brought up like 2-3 years ago and then just streamline it from there. So it's not something that you're restricted from doing, but it does take time as the resources in the county are taken other places. But under our code, you have every right as a body to direct staff to make code changes and to bring them forward for recommendation and then approval by the county commission.
Because, for example, in the code, in the design standards, in the commercial areas, it is the planning commission that must approve metal use on the building, so that does have the teeth. And we do that, so it could be language like that, if we want to have control. Oh, you're quick, Jeremy, thank you. Language can go in that regarding colors. Okay, we'll take a little break. Our meeting.
You staying busy? Busy as you wanna be?
It's, so I got lucky and made some good hires. So basically, they're running the business. Need, basically I go in and I get in the way, they say,
That tells you that at least they have an interest in it.
yeah, and that's, that's one of the great things. We got lucky that they feel like they've got ownership. In fact, I'm thinking, I haven't talked to Lori about it yet, but I'm thinking of this, some equity to one of my staff, that there's ownership.
But, typically it is a subdivision.
Otherwise,
Yeah, it's interesting.
sharp, then what? Yeah. If I can set a hook, keep it. Yeah, I've started applying for some construction manager jobs. My problem is I've primarily got residential experience. Folks who are hiring commercial experience. Now, the apartments are technically commercial
Have to write names
by
down so I know.
definition, but
He's
not
at the meeting, but also names when someone makes a motion. I mean, I can look right at you and go,
with that. 3 years ago or so, the jobs were all over the place. It's changed.
It'll change again.
Yeah, if they're gonna play with the interest rates again. That might. Hi, how are you? Oh, thank you. Thank you. Sucks. Okay. Will do.
Cindy Maxwell. What? She could cut her hair.
Hey, maybe she's letting that happen.
and if the public could please sign in, it'd be appreciated.
I'll tell you one thing. I wasn't great when I married her. It's not a constant.
I emailed this to you, but this is also just a copy of your ticket for the conference.
Okay.
For the Utah This one.
Thank you.
I did email it to you, but this is your ticket for the Utah.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Here's your paper copy. I did email it.
Oh, yeah,
to
you did. Thank you, Judy.
Which one are you going to? Are you now going the same one?
Already someone.
Which one are you going to?
I'd like to call this meeting of the Morgan County Planning Commission to order. It's Thursday, September 12th, 2024. I've asked Member Maloney to offer a word of prayer, and then if you all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for letting us all meet here safely. And I pray that tonight we can discuss all the issues at hand in a kind and respectful and orderly manner. And thank you again for all that you provide for us in this beautiful place we get to call home. In Jesus' name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and Okay, the next item is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion? I have a motion by Member Wilson and a second by Member Little. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimous. Declaration of conflicts of interest. Any member of the Planning Commission have a conflict with any item on the agenda tonight? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. The next item is public comment. For those in attendance, our first item is an administrative item, the subdivision. There will not be a public hearing for that, so if you wish to comment on the preliminary and final plat for the Eggett Ranch subdivision, now will be your time. The next item, number 7, will have its own, the rezone will have its own public hearing. We request that you hold off your public comment to the time of this public hearing for that item. So now's the time to come up. If you'd like to speak, please come up to the lectern and state your name for the record. I'm not quite understanding your question. Can you come up to the mic and then we can hear you? State your name, Kelly.
Kelly Carter. Okay. I'm just wondering, what's the difference between when you speak?
Legislative items like rezones
Okay.
have their own public hearing for that item specific. It has
Okay.
a separate public hearing where people can make comment. Administrative items do not have their separate public hearing.
Okay.
In
So
fact,
you're
there's
gonna
no,
do the
there's no
administrative
public
part?
hearing. And so
Okay.
if you want to speak on the subdivision, now will be your time. You won't have another chance.
Okay. Why I'm up here? I know there's people ahead of me on the line, on the list.
Oh.
Why I'm up here? Can I
That's
go for
fine.
it?
No,
Okay.
you're fine. Go ahead.
So, Clay and I, Carter, actually sold Eggett 12 acres of this property he wants to rezone. This property, go ahead.
This isn't the rezone. If you're talking,
I'm just talking my feelings on the whole project.
yes.
This is not Hardscrabble. This is Woods Creek.
Okay, there's no rezone.
Okay.
There's no rezone on Woods Creek.
Then why is there a sign in front of my house saying there's a rezone?
This is a subdivision, and it's just,
Okay.
that's just public notice that that ground is being subdivided.
That's a rezone because it's A20 where I live. And if he wants 5-acre lots, that has to be rezoned, correct?
We usually don't do a back and forth, Kelly, but
That's,
Josh, you want to speak?
okay.
The property on Woods Creek is not being rezoned. It is already A20. It is being developed as an A20 subdivision, single lot subdivision. It is administrative. It is a check the box, which is why there's no public hearing. If you have public comment about the subdivision on Woods Creek, now would be the time to speak to that. However, if you're wanting to speak about the subdivision of his 20 point something acre property off of Hardscrabble, you need to wait for the public hearing.
So this is just for the one lot subdivision.
Of Hardscrabble, or Woods Creek,
Woods
correct?
Creek.
That's what I want to speak on, is Woods
Okay.
Creek.
Yes, right.
Okay. Well, it's my understanding that we have to have 20 acres to build up there, one home. Okay? I know this. Olivia, stand up. Because she just went through this. It took her 4 years to get through the process of 20 acres and one home. When we had, at that point, well over 100 acres of ours. Clay's the only one in Porterville at this point that's never lived outside of Porterville. Our farm, this little baby here is the 6th generation on our farm, okay? We're not opposing this subdivision, but we would like a couple things to happen for him to have that subdivision up there. One is the road. It needs to be widened and maintained. There's a blind spot that goes up to that lane that is deadly, and it will prove deadly one of these days unless it's changed. We would like the same opportunity for, I personally had 7 children. None of them can build up there. We don't have enough property now to give our children land to build up there because we were told it was A20. You can build one house on A20. And if that's not the point, or if that's not the case, we want it stipulated in this meeting that we can have the same privilege as Eggets and put a subdivision up there on the 20 acres or on our 100 acres. Let me just take a minute and read my husband's words. It was better for him not to be here. It says, I would like to make some comments relating to
You want to state Clay's name? State
Yeah,
his
Clay
name for
Carter.
the record.
Opposed to the related to the proposed Eggets subdivision. In the past, we have been told that the amount of homes being built up Woods Creek Road have reached the amount that road is allowed to service. If 6 more homes are going to be built, there is going to be a requirement that the road is first widened to specs that allow the number to be increased. If not, then I oppose this subdivision. Also, the road coming down from Pettit's and Eggets has a sharp turn where it enters Woods Creek Road. Cars coming down the road are not visible to cars coming up the road. If there is an increase in traffic coming down the road from Eggets, something needs to be done to take down the bank so people driving can see each other on the corner. If this subdivision is allowed, all other landowners that border the property, our own land on Woods Creek Road, need to be allowed to zone to A5 acres from A20. It should not be limited to one particular owner and one piece of property. If the county zoning is going to allow it to be allowed for everyone, anyone, it should be allowed for everyone. If the county does not wish to allow the same privilege to surrounding areas, then we oppose the subdivision. One person should not be allowed to do something that the next person cannot be the same on. I don't know if any of my kids want to speak at this point.
What is,
All but one of them are here.
okay, well, thank you. You can just come up to the lectern and state your name. Again,
My name is Brent Porter. I got a couple of questions about the work session. Can I ask about those now, or is that a closed session?
you can ask, this isn't a back and forth, but you
Right.
may ask, we'll take notes
Well,
and may address,
the
so
statement
that's
I
fine.
thought was, you made a statement of if people want open space, they should go ahead and buy it. Which Josh said a little later of, if you have an open space on somebody's property, you reduce their value to 0. Back in 2009, we discussed several tools to maintain open space by development transfer rights. And that went nowhere. And it brought up again, I think, in 10, and again in 12, and again whenever, where there are tools involved. But nobody really wanted to do anything about it. So, Ms. Sessions, I have a huge difference in opinion in that because the offer is there and the tools all are available. We just haven't utilized them. So, I agree with you. If I want 1,000 acres, I buy 1,000 acres. But if I can preserve it to maintain for the community, there are tools involved if they are utilized, similar to a house color or a roof color or a, darkened sky color. Okay. The second one I want to discuss is people have property rights for a reason, and as long as they maintain within the current rights, there really isn't, like you said, a lot you can say, because they're maintaining within the rights of that area. Personally, there's a house in my backyard which mysteriously we had a 20-acre AA20 come all the way up to the road between my house and his house, and my house is included, to which I went and asked the planner, how did that even happen? To which, mysteriously, now it's fixed again. I wasn't notified the first time. I wasn't notified the second time. So I'm going to go chat with him and see if we can't return that the way it was, because things just can't be done with the swipe of a pen without people knowing about it when it's my property. We positioned our house such that we wouldn't have that. And lo and behold, we do. Okay? I'll talk on the next one when it's available. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am Olivia Pence. I have a few things I want to talk about. So this,
Oh, don't, okay. Just be careful when you touch the screen. It is a touch screen, so it will move on you. Just a warning. It's
no,
okay.
I did want to say something on this. It is not advertised correctly. Woods Creek is in Porterville, not Litchfield. So I do wonder if that error has made it so that people who would want to be here tonight have missed out on that opportunity.
Okay, well, no, just, well, no, again, this isn't a back and forth. I'm taking notes.
I would just like that to be noticed because
Okay.
I do know that part of this process is that it does have to be legally advertised in specific ways. And so I do think that this error has maybe made it so that maybe some people didn't know that they would want to come.
Okay,
I think other than that, the main concern for us, I do want to clarify, this plat for the Agate Ranch small subdivision at 306 Woods Creek in Porterville, is that going to be an A20 lot?
again, we're taking notes, not a back and forth. Your questions will be addressed in our discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name's Blake Gailey. I would just express similar concerns on that road. I understand that it's an A20 zoning up there, that he's only going to put one house. But it's technically our family that owns that road. I think it was under the premise for many, many years that Woods Creek was a public road. It was maintained by the county, plowed by the county, and has since come to our attention that it's actually our property, which I don't think we have a lot of problems with people building up there, but there is some liability and safety concerns as we allow people to build up there. You know, it's an unsafe road, a single lane road. We allow more and more people up there. Our family's concern is that we're taking that liability upon ourselves because we are the property owners. The previous, or the Carters, the Pettits, I don't believe they ever got permission to use that road, which is fine because I believe it was under the premise, way back when they built, it was a county road. Since then, those that have built have come and got an easement from us. I don't think we've seen that request from Mr. Pettit, or not Pettit, Mr. Eggett. And so we would just like that to be addressed. And the possibility of that road, becoming a county road. I don't think we're opposed to deeding that over, to the county, to prevent that liability. But something needs to be done as far as the maintenance, who's liable for that road. And so I just wish that would be addressed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
I've got a couple of things.
Les, can you state your name?
Les Adams. I live in
Thank you.
Porterville. A couple of things. Highway 66, before we do any more development in Highway 66, somebody somewhere's got to take a look and see what's going on. We've got more recreation up in Highway 66 than anywhere in the county. We've allowed so many recreation areas to be built. This last one that Young's have put up there, and I don't know how they got away with having all of those mini homes up there and that giant pavilion without any public input that I saw. The roads needs to be taken care of. The road needs to be considered in all of these things. I was under the impression that this Woods Creek was going to be 5 or 35 houses. You know how rumors start. One house I can see. Another thing, and I don't know how you do this as a board, but in Porterville, and especially Hartscrabble, where the other subdivision is going to be, there's a serious issue with water, wells. And I don't know if that's just a buyer beware, or if there's some kind of a disclosure that the seller can put in there to say, you know what, we need to sign this disclosure, because it's very possible you're going to end up with an 800-foot well with 2 gallons of water per minute. And I think that only fair to the buyers, they should be aware that they may be hauling water for about 363 days a year.
Thank you.
So by way of clarification, I have bought a property up here, and I'll be making this my permanent resident come January 6th.
Please state your
My
name.
name is Randy Elliott, and a little bit of credibility is that I am currently a Davis County resident because I am the commissioner in Davis County. But I bought a house up here recently, up in Hartscrabble area. I bought it was a bank-owned home. It was owned by some previous people that did some, I think, some shady deals as well. They had taken a 20-acre house plot, decided let's put some other houses there, and somehow they got a less than an acre lot passed somehow. And that person is currently building, and their well is too close to the neighbor's property. Their well doesn't have that much water in it. I also serve on Weaver Basin water. And there's a very, very much big concern, Madam Chair. We don't have enough water. We've had struggles the last few years with wells up here. We know that. We know that with our neighbors. The other problem you're going to have is if you keep allowing more and more homes to be in, the federal government will come down on you because there's too much septic water that is getting down into the water systems and into the groundwater, and you'll have the federal government come in here and mandate you to put in a sewer system. And I sure hope Morgan County's prepared for that. Because, Madam Chair, the way you look at him, it's like that decision's already been made, that you're okay to let some of these things happen. And you're going to be out looking for ways to be able to pay for this. Because it'll happen. It's happening in other rural communities. I serve on other federal level organizations. You're opening yourself up to a Pandora's box by allowing one to happen. It'll happen to everybody else. And the developers will come in here and they will sue you. Davis County changed their zoning a few years ago because they didn't have septic. They want to put a 50-acre lot subdivision all on septic. And we said no. Why? Because of the groundwater issues. We've since got federal government monies to go in and go ahead and sue. We put sewer in our West Point area, in our Hooper area. But that's what you're going to have to do. You keep allowing more and more development, you're going to have to grow up in Causa County and say, we got to provide water and we got to provide sewer. And you're going to have to pay for that. And the federal government will mandate you to do that.
Thank you.
My name's Rich Agate. I'm Roger's brother that's asking for this, so I just want to clarify a couple things.
Are you going to be representing the applicant?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay,
That's what I'm
then
gonna
you
do.
will have a chance when we discuss.
Well, I'd just like to address the guy with the cufflinks. Just
Okay.
So the federal government will not. So I know a lot of people in the state government, and actually, what you'll come down to. I live in West Bountiful, where it was 10-acre lots, then it was 5, and now it's 1, and they keep going down and down. The state governments will mandate, and there's already legislation that will say that you have to have so many people. So the federal government isn't going to come in and make you do all these things and take this away and scare you. You can scare people all you want. What they're doing, and I think the lady that spoke, Carter, I think is her name, if you want to have your kids have land, then there's 2 separate issues here. The 40-acre, like you said, is administrative, and there's no comment on that.
Okay,
Yeah. No, but what I'm saying is, it's easier if someone does it, and you'll be able to do it. I don't know that you can say everyone in the world, and I don't know what it is, but there's already 1-acre lots that are a side of his property, and then the 40-acre, the administrative, that's just he's checked all the boxes, he's done everything he needs to, and you really can't keep people from. You can get scared the federal government's going to come in and make you do things, but like if you do the administrative things on the 5 acres, that's a great discussion for people that want to have their kids here and everything else. And if someone's going to do it, then yeah, it's probably other people would be able to do it in the future. So, but if I need to stand up here and get a minute, I will. But I just can't scare people with the federal government claims.
Okay, thank you. Any more public comment? Okay, seeing none, we will move on. We will be addressing item number 6. This is the Eggett Ranch subdivision preliminary and final plat. And does the attorney, do you want to address the noticing issue?
I apologize, I'm not aware of exactly where this is, whether it is in Richville or
It's
Porterville.
not. It's not in Richville. It's in Porterville.
Was the notice posted at the property and all letters sent? Well, I guess this isn't a public hearing. So Josh, can you just describe the notice that went out?
So all property owners within 1,000 feet of the property in Woodcross were sent out letters. Sorry, Woods Creek. I can't memorize everything. Anyway, our code requires notifications to be sent out. Thanks. All letters were mailed out to residents within 1,000 feet of the boundary of the properties within Woods Creek. And a notice of posting was placed on that property. There was also a letter sent out to all property owners within 1,000 feet of the Hardscrabble property, and the posting took place there. In addition, we posted the legislative item, which is the rezoning, in the Standard Examiner for the public hearing. So as far as I know, the only place where it says Richville is in the agenda, and that's the only incorrect location. But other than that, we have followed all the state regulations for noticing a property.
So the notice that went out in the paper said Porterville. Is that
I don't remember. I can go pull the. I can go pull the public notice.
Sorry,
if you
I'm just
want me to
pulling
check.
it up on maps to get an idea of where it's at. Looks like Woods Creek Road is further south than even the Hardscrabble Court.
Yes.
And that's correct, okay. Richville would be a little further north from the Hardscrabble Court, is that correct?
Correct.
Chair? Okay. I think as long as it's been posted in the newspaper, if the only issue is the agenda, the most important is that it's posted at the property, everyone within 1,000 feet. But if there's a worry on that issue, then it could be deferred to the next planning commission meeting.
It does say Richville, so we'll need to continue it.
Yeah, I would suggest then, if that's how it's been posted, just give everyone an opportunity to come and speak during a public comment period. We've heard a few tonight. I would suggest just continuing it to the next planning commission meeting, repost it in Porterville, and then we should be okay.
Technically, it was posted in Porterville, but that word. So if you recommend
Or notice that it's the Woods Creek is in Porterville, not Richville.
Okay, we'll redo the notice and we'll send it out.
I think it'd be a good opportunity, though, to review this application so it would answer a lot of questions about how many lots are being formed with the subdivision
That's fine. Yep.
and the acreage in the lots. So if you just want to go forward with your presentation, with the understanding that we will continue it.
Thank you, and good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Planning Commission. Application, actually I don't know which application number this is. This is the Agate Ranch Small Subdivision Preliminary and Final Plat. For the next meeting, this will come to you for a decision to approve. But for this meeting, I'd like to clarify the project location at approximately 306 West Woods Creek Road. The current zoning of the property is agriculture, which is a 20-acre minimum zoning option, and the acreage is 28.05 acres. Request, Madam Chair, is for approval of preliminary and final plat combined for a one-lot subdivision. Staff has conducted a review that routes in the county surveyor, the fire department, the county engineer, of course the zoning administrator in the planning department, to look at the various aspects of what it takes to make a proposal like this a benefit to the health, safety, and welfare of not just the neighborhood but the county. And so with reviews having been done and staff finding that again, reviews looked over the applicable land use standards and that this proposal meets all minimum code requirements, staff is recommending approval to this body. So one thing that was brought up days before this meeting was maybe a discrepancy just about some details about a shared well. So what we've learned is that the plat references the shared well towards the northeast end of the property, close by where the proposed ingress would be. And then the notes on the plat reference a shared well also. The discrepancy lies in the fact that the Weber Morgan Health Department issued a letter that stated that whatever was approved is not a shared well. So it's just a little confusing. We mulled over that in our office. The applicant's been alerted that that's probably a mistake on Weber Morgan Health's letter, the department's letter. And as such, the applicant will be reaching out to the Weber Morgan Health Department to correct that. Otherwise, the location of the shared well and the use thereof for the property, having been reviewed by staff, is acceptable, Madam Chair. With other aspects of developability, we look at property line setbacks. There's plenty of space here. Meets all those setbacks. It meets the building height per proposal, and building heights rather looked at the building permit process. Concerning Woods Creek Road, Woods Creek Road is a county right-of-way that wherein a private lane comes from near the terminus of Woods Creek Road, and it serves the Pettit Ranchettes, which is an adjacent subdivision, 2 or 3 lots, if my memory serves. And so that private lane, at the time having been designed to the private lane standards, this property, this one-lot subdivision, derives access by means of an access easement, which is only a feature in some rural residential zoning options. You know what? That's not true. It's the agriculture, multiple use, and forestry zones that can utilize access easements. And so in all aspects of the things that we look at for review, Madam Chair, this application, as has been said tonight, checks all the boxes with, again, some minor comments left from the surveyor's review. And then just this discrepancy about the shared well versus a private separate well. That can be fixed, especially if this is being continued to the next meeting. That can be, I suppose we may see another letter perhaps by that time, or the applicant can state that they're pursuing such, and that could be a stipulation for approval, Madam Chair, that they do that prior to recording of any Mylar plat. I'm happy to answer any question, and I'm going to look. The applicant has both his brother representing and also the designer of the Mylar of the plat to answer more technical questions regarding the plat, Madam Chair. I yield the rest of my time, and I'm happy to. Staff, Josh and I are happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Okay, and just to clarify that it is an existing shared well.
Correct.
So there's no new well being drilled.
Correct.
Okay.
It's not represented on the plat. The only reference to such is in Weaver Morgan's letter, that it's not a shared well. It's confusing.
Okay, thank you. Does any member have any questions for staff?
I just have a couple. So the shared well on the note, it says lots 1A and 2, right? Those lots share that well.
From the Pettit Ranch subdivision, but for this new subdivision, that would be a third property sharing the well.
Okay, so they'll
The
be
Weaver-
using that existing well.
The Weaver Morgan Health Department does approve shared wells, and in this case, and actually I would defer this question and my answer to it to the applicant's representative, as that was a discussion with Weaver Morgan Health during the time that they were seeking approval, shared well versus private well.
But as far as the county's concerned, if Weaver Morgan says it's all right, they've got plenty of water, they've got access to it, that's all we really would.
That's a requirement for them to even have this application be reviewed. A complete application means that there's a lot of documents. One of those is approval in the form of a will serve letter from the applicable water authority.
So they have that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Just believe there's a typo in that letter or some sort of thing.
Yeah. There was some discussion about a visibility on a curve on the road leading into the subdivision. Is that something that we would have reviewed, or Public Works would have looked at, or?
So I wasn't sure if they were talking about Highway 66 or the private lane.
Okay.
Highway 66 is not being changed, updated, or amended. The private lane is not going to be accepted by the county. It's built to county street standards. It's a private lane. Private lanes can serve up to 4 lots. This is a third or fourth lot, and it is being served through an access easement from that point.
Do we have the access easement agreement? Do you know if that has been submitted? That the owners in the Pettit Ranchettes?
Yeah, they'll need. He says that they do have it.
Okay.
Can I speak to it?
Okay. Just any more questions for staff? Okay, we'll have the applicant or applicant's representative.
Much better than I do, but I did want to point out, so it doesn't have to be tabled, I have the notice of public meetings here, and it does say Porterville. This is what was received in the mail. So I don't know if that's
Well,
I think the worry is that what was posted on the agenda is what goes to those outside the 1,000 foot radius. And just to give every opportunity for anyone in the county to receive that notice.
Most of the concerns are for the 5-acre lot thing.
Right.
Concerns on, I mean, this is an administrative where you don't even have a comment period for it.
There's a comment period at the beginning of every public meeting, and as the county attorney, I do have to enforce the Open Meetings Act. and under the Open Meetings Act, if there's a challenge to the notice that's been given, or any, like if it wasn't noticed properly, if the agenda has something that is inaccurate or not
What
as
are the
accurate as it should be.
requirements for that note? It's the agenda.
Right.
Is that part of it?
It's
So
part of the
that's why
Open
you're-
Meetings Act, and if,
Will that create that he has to stop doing stuff or until the next meeting, or
Right.
he was pretty adamant about thought this would be a slam dunk. because
and I guess, I mean, that's the risk that you have moving forward, is if someone challenges it, then they could overturn the decision that's made tonight if the Open Meetings Act isn't followed. So, out of an abundance of caution, that's my recommendation, but once again, I'm not the decision maker, that's up to
Is it possible
the members
to
here.
approve it if that's what you'll do, and then he takes the chance? Because either way, it's going to wait till the next meeting. At least this way, if nobody does.
Well, they have a time frame to do that. I believe it's up to 90 days. I can pull the statute if you'd like, but if they challenge it within 90 days and then it's reversed, that's not as quickly as the next meeting.
So how did the mistake happen? Just somebody.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been submitted incorrectly and then corrected in one place and not in another.
But this notice of public meeting is not good enough to do that.
That's my feeling on it from my position, and you may disagree and the body may disagree, but that's my recommendation.
Was it right in the newspaper or wrong in the newspaper?
I did check the notice that we sent out that went into the newspaper as well as the letters, and for the Agate subdivision, it did say Ridgeville. It's something that I missed when I was reviewing it.
And how does it? You think they could?
Mr. Agate, can you move the mic? It's not picking you up.
Do you
Thank
think
you.
they could have corrected it like this one? Because this one is corrected. I mean, I have.
Is that for the subdivision or for the public hearing?
I have both of them, and they both say Porterville, but it is the wrong address. So in
Either
Porterville
way,
anyway.
then.
So does that? I mean, it's
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So with the wrong address, even though it says Porterville, make it.
So the second one has the wrong address?
Yeah. No, the first one.
Oh,
This one
okay.
it says Porterville, but it has his address to his hardscrabble. So.
Yeah,
So would that make
I
it,
think that we would just need to,
And when
I mean,
will the
either
next
way, once
meeting-
again, it's gonna be up to someone to challenge it.
Yeah. How long till the next?
It's 2 weeks to the next meeting, the 26th.
Yeah, he'll have to do it.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Do you have any questions?
Just that if you had that easement in place with the landowner who owns that road, the private road.
Yeah, he did all the work.
Jess, you want to come up?
So the easement was negotiated with the seller at the time of purchase. So that's something that Rogers had for quite some time.
So the easement, so I guess the question of the public comment was that the owner of the road was unaware there was a new easement, but you're saying that it's an easement that ran with the land when it was sold? Is that your understanding?
The property was purchased.
Can you
from
step up closer to the mic so it can pick you up?
Sorry about that. The property was purchased from the owners of Lot 1 of Pettit Ranchettes. So the easement that Roger has is along the existing private lane for that subdivision. And then he also had to get that from Randy Pettit as well. So he has I believe it's 30 feet wide from top to bottom, extending from Woods Creek Road up to Rogers property line on the north. So that is recorded in place.
That might be something that
Get a copy of that for
could
staff.
be included in the staff report next time. I think that would help the members here. Is there any boundary, or not boundary line, is there any road maintenance agreement that you're aware of?
I'm not aware off the top of my head what the maintenance agreement was.
Okay.
Or if there is.
If there is anything, that might be something that would be helpful for the next time it's noticed.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? Okay, thank you. Okay, if there's no more questions for staff, it's,
Madam Chair, I have one question for staff.
sure.
Comparing the final plat to the preliminary plat, the preliminary plat shows a fire department turnaround right here. That is not shown on the final plat. I don't know if that's
That's because the preliminary plat does have a different set of requirements for what should be shown. The final plat is meant to be simpler in nature. There needs to be room for those signature blocks. The bulk of the review should be done at preliminary plat. It's just, I can see how it's confusing how preliminary and final plat for subdivisions less than 10 or so lots are combined to go to one meeting together, and then they do not go to the county commission. They rather fall under the land use authority of the planning commission.
I guess my question is, if will we, when it comes time for them to get their building permit, will that be required, that fire department turnaround?
So in order to obtain a building permit, an applicant with a new build would have to obtain fire department approval of their building permit plans. That is one thing that would be checked at that time, so you have actually double coverage here.
Okay.
Same approval body in two different times.
How long's that road?
However long the applicant wants it to be past.
Well,
the
it's an
point where
existing
they-
road, right?
Existing road, and then
This is more their driveway.
driveway, yeah, and so if they record this Mylar, that'll take, I estimate a few weeks at least, and then for the building permit plans, they submit those and those get reviewed. There's 2
No,
months.
like the length of the road,
Oh, I see.
because that may have been what necessitated the fire turnaround.
That is probably what necessitated it. I don't know the length off the top of my head. The private lane is currently existing, and then the access easement's going to act more like a driveway.
Do we know if, because on the department comments, it says for the fire EMS comments received and recommend approval, was that mentioned at all in their comments?
Not from my memory, no.
Because I know that the length of the road is, I would think, would be a factor.
Our current code says no longer than 750 feet to a dead-end road without some sort of turnaround, but that can be modified by the authority having jurisdiction, which would be the fire marshal. So they would have to review that and put in whatever requirements.
Okay.
If I could amend my statement, I only mean to say that I just didn't see that comment specifically addressed, but overall, they gave their approval.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions? Okay, we're aware of the discrepancy in the noticing and the recommendation by the county attorney. What's the preference of the planning commission regarding this application?
Madam Chair, I move that we continue this application until the next available meeting.
Okay, there's a motion by Member Murray to continue this application to our next available meeting. Next will be our next meeting in 2 weeks. Is there a second?
I second that.
There's a second by Member Maloney. Any discussion on this motion?
Do we need to put in the reason why on this at all, or does that not matter?
I think you could add it. There was also discussion of the applicant providing any easement agreement and road maintenance agreement, which you may add to your motion.
Okay, we're gonna amend it. Continue this application, given the discrepancies in addressing in the notices that were sent out or published. That would give more opportunity to get the comments that we were looking for.
And to provide the access easement and maintenance agreement?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have
And I second that motion, amended.
Okay, we had the motion and the second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, it's unanimous. Okay, the next item, this is the the public hearing, discussion decision on the Eggett rezone.
Madam Chair, the Eggett rezone is application number 24.049. The location is 667 West Hardscrabble Court. And the current zoning is split on both of our maps, Madam Chair. For the zoning map, it's depicted as both RR1, which is rural residential 1 acre minimum, and A20, which is agriculture 20 acre minimum. So that's the split. Both zonings are present on the property. And then on the future land use map, it's the same, at least similar. Lines look very close to a majority of agriculture represented on the property, and rural residential 1 along the frontage of Hardscrabble, Madam Chair. And with the request tonight, that being to rezone from that split designation on both maps, future land use map and zoning map, to rural residential 5 completely. I repeat, to rezone to rural residential 5 on the zoning map, and to amend the future land use map to reflect that change. To ranch residential 5, I believe, is the designation. So, staff, when doing the review for a rezone, looks at it on a case-by-case basis. For this particular case, we found that, again, with splitting the difference between the lower density zone and the medium density zone, lower density being agriculture and medium density being rural residential, that splitting the difference to a rural residential 5 acre minimum provides the buffering as discussed earlier in our work session, Madam Chair. It's a good request in that they're not looking to rezone to something perhaps outlandish, like going commercial or anything like that. They're looking at a good zoning option, and we don't counsel them on what they should choose. It's never a portion of the discussion when an applicant comes to do a pre-application meeting. So the zoning request that they chose is RR5 and Ranch Residential 5. The request is present due east, adjacent to the property, Madam Chair, as seen on the screen. And then there are many properties that are also split zone on Hardscrabble Court and Hardscrabble Road itself, West Hardscrabble Road, I believe it's called. And then a lot of the properties range between 1 acre, 2 acre, 5 acre. It's all kind of, there's a lot of zoning acreages present in that area, and so staff believes that a 5 acre choice is fair in this case. And so the one thing is the application process for a rezone, Madam Chair, is actually very simple. An applicant submits a form, pays a fee, and submits a legal description. So as opposed to the preliminary plat where there's a lot of requirements, a lot of engineering that has to be done even to generate a plat document, surveying and other things. For this rezone, the applicant chooses a zoning option, they submit a legal description with the application and fees, and they're on their way and staff reviews it as such. Never at any time do we ever ask the applicant if they how many lots they think they'll get with a new zoning option or anything of that nature. We only look at the request to see if it could work from the zoning and general plan, in this case, standpoint. Otherwise, again, Madam Chair, the applicant and their agent are in the audience. Staff is happy to answer questions, and I yield my time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any questions for staff?
I just have, I think, one maybe. Have you looked at, so we've got a split zoning, A20 and RR1, correct?
Correct.
And I know you said that we don't ask them how many lots they're anticipating, but I think you kind of get an idea based on the zone that they're looking at least close, right? Do we know approximately what percentage of the developable land is A20 versus the developable land that's RR1?
So the answer is actually no. We don't look at that until let's say they've accomplished a rezone and it's approved. So then the next step would be the track changes from legislative to administrative, wherein they start by submitting a concept plan, and that's actually where, from a conceptual level, we start looking at the division of lots to even see how many they could have, and of course it's reviewed and scrutinized. And then at preliminary plat level, you get even more into the engineering and surveying details to then see how lines could actually work and all of that, and then we make sure all throughout that, again, all minimum code requirements are met. So at this point, the answer to that question is not really now. To speak to general kind of planning norms, you could take the acreage, 20.31 acres, and you could subtract out somewhere between 25 to 35% of that number for things like topography, curb gutter, sidewalks, utilities, easements, if it won't work with the boundary lines and all of that. And so then by that time, you start to maybe venture a guess. And so it's not a simple calculation of 5 acres, 20.31 divided by 5. It's not that simple. You're probably looking at less lots than 4 or 5.
Okay. And then with the land use map, we're not creating an island of the, what are we looking at? Ranch Residential 5. There's not going to be an island of Ranch Residential 5 surrounded by a different designation, is there?
Within the property boundaries, it would all be designated.
But
ranch
the
residential.
property surrounding this.
Wouldn't affect it, no, of course not.
There's already a ranch residential 5 acre adjacent to it.
Okay, so it's not, we'll
And-
have an island separate from everything else.
No, that's one of the things that we look at when we decide whether to recommend approval or denial, is size of lots in the area, the size of lots that are conforming versus non-conforming, and if there's that type of zoning in the area already. And there is already a rural residential 5 acre adjacent to it.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions for staff?
So you pointed out the RR5, and all those along Hardscrabble Road then are an RR1, or what's current zoning of those?
So you can see on the map on your screen that I promise it's a color, it doesn't look like it, but it's like tan. And so that's what goes along the county rights-of-way. So then the green color represents agriculture. And so as you can see, you look at a majority of those properties, they almost all have that split designation. The one exception being the property that is completely RR5 right now.
Current zoning of all those is a split designation.
Most of them, yes. I mean, the majority of them. That one with the cursor on your screen, yeah, that's all in the one zoning designation, that one as well. But even towards where the cursor was towards the east, you have kind of the reverse. You have a majority of RR1 with just some A20 in the back. Mines were drawn years ago. I mean, the county, that's referred to as tunnel zoning. So a broad stroke was painted over the county on rights-of-way such as, well, Hardscrabble, as you can see before you, but Morgan Valley Drive and Highway 66. That tunnel zoning is present in actually quite a lot of the county.
Any more questions for staff? Do you have any questions for the applicant before we go into public hearing?
I personally would rather hear the public hearing first.
Okay. Okay, then I'll accept a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
I have a motion by Member Wilson to go into public hearing,
Second.
and a second by Member Murray. All in favor?
Aye.
Now, public hearing. We request that you, again, come up to the lectern and state your name, and if you could please keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Brandon Porter, I started the last one, I'll start this one. I'm opposed to it. Everything up there is split. It's ridiculous to say, oh, it's split, so we should, bring it on in. Welcome to Morgan. The major highways anywhere out of Mountain Green, where Peterson, that's it. So using that as a criteria doesn't matter. The water up in Hardscrabble is ridiculous. Adding 2 more into it is an issue. Excuse me? I heard a... sorry. Okay, sorry. So I think that needs to be looked at. I think that water being trucked in is a natural thing when you go up there. To add more into it, unless you do a shared well agreement. And I'd like to see the volume of water out of that well that's potable. That's a shared well agreement. So I'm absolutely against it because, like anything else, that's the first step. Thank you.
I'm Arnold Meixel. I live up on Hardscrabble Road. I was born and raised up here in Morgan, and that's where I was born, up there. He's got it right. There's no water up there. There's a lot of us that's got wells that we're packing water. And over on that side, I don't even think Mr. Agate has enough water, but yet he's trying to bring more houses in. More of our aquifer of water is going down, which is going to take from everybody in our neighborhood. So there's going to be some wells that will probably go dry because there's some bad wells up there. Like I said, there's a lot of them that's packing water, which is ridiculous. They're drilling 900 and something feet to find water. And yet he's trying to bring more people in. I think they ought to be told that they could be possibly 900 and something feet. That's a lot of money for them to drill. And there's other ones that's drilling up there that ain't even hitting. They've wasted $20,000 to $30,000 for a dry hole. There ain't no water up there. We don't need any more people up there. So hopefully you can take that in consideration and if this does go through, let them know that they will be drilling a long ways to get their water.
I'm Lance Meixel. I live up on Hardscrabble Road as well. Right, so as we look at this, I think as other people have said, right, just because there's a 5RR there next to it does not mean that we should put another one, right? As we start looking at how many RR20s there are up Hardscrabble, and we start saying, you approve this one, and the guy down the road wants to go get his approved, and how can you say no, right? Just a quick look, there's probably 4 or 5 20-acre lots up there. All of a sudden, right, we get 2 to 3 more homes on each of those, another 10, 15, 20 homes in Hardscrabble. The water can't handle it, right? There's not enough water for 20 homes. There's not enough, right? And then you got septic tanks for all those homes, right? So this is a first approval. How do you not give approval to the next person, to the neighbor 300 feet away from him or whatever it is that has 20 acres and goes, oh, I'm ready to subdivide mine, right? My biggest problem is we're here with the other. Obviously, Roger does not care because he's working on approval for his other house. He wants this. He can't sell it because he wants too much money. Well, I'll subdivide it so I can lower my prices, sell this, right? He has no interest in Hardscrabble, right? Wants to sell it and move away. Thank you.
Martin Quinlan, I live up in Porterville. Again, I agree with the last gentleman as far as setting a precedent and this just rolling forward. the roads on the weekends, or the bicyclists and everything. It's dangerous. There's a lot to needs to be done with infrastructure before anything else ever comes in. In the wintertime, when you head out of town, we are the last people to have any support. If I can make it into Morgan, I can go anywhere I want. It's just, I think we're going to be taxing the system and the logistics.
Chris Mikesell. I also live up Hardscrabble. I'd like to start with a question, because in the previous, was this emailed out on this particular one as well, up Hardscrabble? Or mailed out to residents within 1,000 feet? Legitimate question. Was I supposed to get one of these?
So once again, it's not a back and forth, but you can ask your questions and we can take notes
Okay.
and answer
Okay.
them.
Because I'm pretty sure I live within 1,000 feet, never received anything. As the others have said, water, for me, water's the big issue. I'm a guy that has to haul water a few months a year. I have a neighbor across the street that, if I reflect back, I wonder how that home got approved with pretty much no water. And he owns it now, and he suffers with having no water. And it's going to be awfully frustrating to see more homes put in, and we have to continue to deal with no water, hauling water every 2 days at 250 gallons every time I have to haul it is painstaking when you see someone get approved for something. And the fact that no one's here that owns this property to substantiate what he's trying to do, I think shows that that individual does not care about this at all. Just wants to develop his land and leave. And I think this needs to be really looked at, like everybody else has said, that we start rezoning these 20-acre lots. Where does it end? And where does it end? And we have to take that into account. And I hope that the Planning Commission, I hope you guys look at that and realize that our resource of water it's not great up there, and we cannot continue to hurt the people that already live there. Thank you.
Randy Elliott. I don't think this is a case of NIMBYism. I think this is a case of concerned neighbors that live up there, that draw their water from up there, and they see the impacts that are there. I've worked with developers. They develop, they'll change their LLC, something happens to that home, something happens to that property, they try to go back to the developer, guess what? He's in Hawaii like his shirt says. He's out of here. He's made his money, he's gone. And who's left to impact again? I'm not fear-mongering, I'm just telling you that's the case what usually happens. The other concern I have up here, I've noticed, is that how are you going to get water and fire suppressants? I know you've mandated that in the homes, that they will have that now. They have fire suppressants in these homes. But you better have some tankers placed up there, because when a fire happens and the resources aren't able to get there, case in point, Farmington, they backed a fire truck backwards. And they couldn't get the water out. Guess who paid for the new house? Farmington City did. So I'm just saying, you're going to have to start adding more infrastructure, and your taxes will go up in this community because as you keep going. But just like the neighbor said, just because the zoning is, neighbors next to it is that type of zoning that was originally placed as agriculture A20 for a reason. And I think you should probably start honoring those reasons, because you start opening those boxes, you're going to have every neighbor, every developer's attorney saying, you did it here, now we want it here. Thank you.
Ellen Plateau. We bought this house on Hardscrabble 4 years ago, and excited to move up here. But I didn't do my due diligence on checking it out. I should have known by the address, Hardscrabble. Definition, a place of barren or barely arable land. Okay, I bought it from a preacher. I got the one on the hill. Anyway, we love it. He didn't disclose that I got an 850-foot deep, low volume well. And I do have to haul water. Luckily, with really good neighbors, I get by. Like I said, due diligence, I should have known. I should have asked before, because I would not have bought that from East Layton. And more houses behind me, I can't imagine what it's going to do to my well. So, anything's going to be greatly affect all of my neighbors. These guys are beneath me. I'm up on the hill. At least I'm going to get the water before they are. So, anyway, it affects everybody. Thanks.
Any more comments?
Blake Gailey, again, I live out there in Porterville, just over the hill from Hardscrabble, but we have the same issue with the water. You know, I don't think it needs to be repeated. You know, I was part of the area planning commission when they did the area plan not too long ago, you know, and that was always, you know, always along the highways. They were kind of designating for a single house to be accessed off the highway with the A20, you know, so you get this split designation because of the highway. But it was never the intention of the area plan from comments from the public and things that these were to be split and put into RR5, you know. And so I just think if we put an area plan in place, you know, who are we to go in because some owner wants to, you know, further make his personal property more financial feasible, you know, allow him to change it, because we open the floodgates to everybody else. You know, this same situation that you see in Hardscrabble, all along Highway 66, you know, down Morgan Valley Drive. So I just think, you know, where do you draw that line if we allow these changes? Thank you.
I'm Cindy Mikes. I live on Hardscrabble. I just want to show on the map.
Cindy,
Be
you'll need
careful,
to take
the touch screen.
I know. About where I circled there, it's always flooding. And as it comes out of there, it goes down the road. And it puts these people in danger. Every spring. Every spring. And the county has to go in, fix it, rock it, redo it with a backhoe. And the water situation, it stinks up there. It stinks to go turn on your water and there's no water. And 3 to 4 days without showers. It sucks. So, like my husband said, with Roger not being here, that even sucks more. So, but thank you.
Julia Elliott, and I just wanted to comment that the house that we purchased actually already had a well that dried up, and we are on our second well. And so the water is a real issue. The other thing that I wanted to point out, and maybe this is just because I'm not from here, so kind of a city girl, but the highway, there are some major safety issues with getting more people driving on the highway to go up to these subdivisions. Everyone has probably experienced the bike issue where there's bikes in the road, you're having to go around, and then sometimes there's so many corners that there's cars coming around as you're trying to pass and not hit the bikers. So it's dangerous for everyone, even the moms walking in the morning, because there's nowhere else there's no sidewalks anywhere. And so there's not the infrastructure to get much more traffic going up that way. There's a lot of safety concerns that I see as well. Thank you.
Flavia Pence. I'm back. Okay, so first of all, bikers, let's call another meeting about that. I got some things to say. On the note of water, on the map, we're just seeing the Hardscrabble side. What we're not seeing is where the water is coming from, which is underground. That drainage system actually comes over into Porterville and affects way more houses than just what's in Hardscrabble. So like I'm in Porterville, my water is in the same drainage system as all this. And same with a ton of houses up 66. So it's not just this little section of Hardscrabble. I'm sorry about your water, I know it sucks. But we are on the same drainage system, so it does affect a much broader scope than what we are seeing. Also, as far as bringing more people up the highway, I don't know about any of you guys, but I about filled my deer tag last week. So it's not just the bikers and the cars, we need to preserve the wildlife as well. Like, we live with them, they live with us. If we keep building houses and pushing them out, like, we're not gonna have anything left. And yeah, that's what I got to say.
Any more public comment? Okay, accept a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Member Murray and a second by Member Wilson. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, we're now out of public hearing. Do you have any questions for staff or the applicant? Any discussion among the planning commission then?
I don't know if there needs to be discussion. I think it's been pretty well said, so.
Member Wilson, will you speak directly into your mic just for the recording?
If
Thank
I may before, the applicant has a right to speak whether you have questions or not. So to be fair through the process, they do need to be given a chance to speak.
I understand that. I don't know if he wants to hear our comments first or not, so he can address them.
It just seemed like you're moving towards
Oh, okay.
discussion. I would just clarify so that he knows that he'll have a chance to
Okay,
speak.
yes, the applicant will.
At any rate, I don't see a reason to change the zoning on this after listening to people. That's my opinion, so whatever that's worth.
I'm kind of the same opinion that I don't necessarily agree with set the precedence and everything, that's just because we're in split zoning there, that we start with one and every RR20 then would have the availability, we just start stacking houses in. I don't think that it benefits the citizens living around it or the community in this base, or in this case, for instance. And I know it was mentioned that mistake of the tunnel zoning in the past. The past mistakes shouldn't shape the way we go down the future. Just because that split zoning was made in the past doesn't mean that, well, we can correct it this way. And that doesn't benefit those citizens around or in the community. I'm not sure that that is the best decision.
I also see water being a bigger issue in the future, not less of one. So if they're already having serious water issues with these homes, not only just for the current residents, but, goodness forbid that someone does buy this house and they also don't do due diligence and then they don't have water. And I just think I don't think it's fair to the community to put people in situations that are not truly habitable, and not having running water for 3 or 4 days does not seem incredibly habitable to me. So I agree with all of the previous statements as well.
Josh, do you know if there's been a water study done in this Porterville area?
County of Morgan County is not the water authority, and so we have not done any water studies. That's not our jurisdiction. Utah Division of Drinking Water is the authority, and they are only engaged basically when a subdivision application comes through, and they review the well and septic proposals, and then Weber Morgan Health Department signs off on that. We have no authority over the water at all. So I don't know if a water study has been done or not. We're not the jurisdiction that would do that.
There was one done, a hydrology report. The state engineer in Weber Basin did it for the whole county. And it talked about a good aquifer on the valley floor, but it did point out there's some areas in the county where the water was not available.
I will also point out that staff's recommendation of approval was not based on the split zoning, but based on the current existence of rural residential 5 already adjacent to this property, which in staff's argument already set that precedent. Secondly, there are a lot of properties there that are sub 4 acres, whether they're split zoned or not. So the lot sizes already would be indicative of this type of zoning, and there's already RR5 adjacent to it. So those were the basis for staff's recommendation, not the split zone.
No more comments. We'll let the applicant representative come up. And if you care to address any of the issues that were brought forward.
Well, it sounds like you got a water problem. So I think that's everybody that spoke to a water problem. Man, I feel bad if you have to carry water for 3 days. This is not going to make that worse or better. You've got to fix your water problem. So you've got to, I mean, if people are already doing that, there's a water problem. So that's the whole problem. Going on to community, where you talk about community. Look, the lady that spoke at first, I think she said she had 7 kids. Where are they going to live? Where are people going to live? The reason the legislator, the Utah State legislator, is changing and forcing cities to go in less density is because there isn't property, there isn't more. So whatever you do for Roger, that's it. I mean, you know, it sounds like some people like him, some people don't. Most didn't. Cufflinks that talked about the Hawaii shirt. He's not in Hawaii. This was a shirt we made for my dad who passed away 4 weeks ago. So, you know, keep your opinions to yourself on people, but this is a water issue. You guys have a problem, and it's not going to solve it by denying this. Someone else will come along. He'll sell his house. He can build his new house. He can do all of his stuff. It'll come along. People will subdivide it. The staff already recommended it. The next staff will recommend it. There'll be new people here. So you've got to fix a water problem for these people. I mean, that's, if you don't have water for 4 days, if you don't do this, someone else will come with it. If it's not him, if he sells it as is, someone else is going to come up with it. But whether you, and it sounded like the staff said, look, this is a preliminary allowing them to do it. It's not saying there's going to be 4 more homes or 2 more homes or 1 more home or anything else. There's a lot of things that have to happen after that. Just if you approve it, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden he can go build 4 homes, or he, you know, some people said he's going to develop it. He just wants to sell that and move. He's been in Morgan for probably 15, 20 years. He's staying in Morgan. This is where he's made his home, where he wants to be. Maybe not on that hard, whatever the guy said, road that's barren, and, you know, the poor people who bought there who didn't do their due diligence. And I would certainly do that if I were someone buying a lot there. And if I would ask neighbors, do you not shower for 4 days? Do you not, what is the problem? So I think as a planning commission or as a community, you have to fix the water problem for these people. And then you can accept staff recommendations, or even accept staff recommendations, and then as you can still deny building permits if there aren't water. So I think it's pretty straightforward that you have a recommendation, that it wasn't based upon the zoning that a couple of you talked about, but people own property and they have the right to ask for it and they have the right to get it. And if you deny this, someone else will do it, and it'll go, because the legislator will. It's just, there's no place. And if you really care about community, where are your kids going to live? You can't. It would be nice. It'd be great for you guys that can afford 20 acres up here, or 100 acres or whatever you have. But I have 5 kids. They're not able to even buy houses or build them because of, you know, there are places that continue to have 20-acre lots. So that's, I think, man, for these people that live there, fix their water, and then allow it to be what it's designated to be. Any questions for me?
Any questions? Yeah.
And I have no dog in this fight. I'm just here. My brother said this would be a slam dunk. It should be easy. Staff recommended it. I had no idea I was up here to argue with people,
and stuff, so.
Seeing none, no. Well, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
If there's no more questions for staff, or any discussion, any planning commission members, I'm ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, I move we forward a negative recommendation to the County Commission for the Agate rezone application number 24.049, changing 20.31 acres from A20 to R15 to R5 completely, and amending the future land use map from split designation of agriculture and residential 1 to ranch residential 5 completely due to the following. I don't really have anything other than
You need
discussions.
to, yes, state a finding.
Findings that I would recommend they look at would be the fact that the water situation is less than favorable. And if we change the designation, even though I believe in due diligence for people who buy it, you're creating lots that people could buy that they're not going to be able to use fully like other people do. That's finding out front.
Thank you. We have a motion by Member Wilson. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Second by Member McMillan. Any discussion on this motion before voting?
I would just like to mention that, yes, there will be, if it is approved, there will be subsequent approvals and reviews and design issues. But as we discussed last time we got together, that engineers can design lots of things, right? But we can't make more water. But if the zone is approved, then with that comes certain rights, right? So it doesn't sound like we are in a position right now to be able to absorb that many more units on the existing water situation.
All in favor
Aye.
of a negative recommendation?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion was unanimous, it carries. And for the public, this was just a recommendation. The final decision will be made by the county council, or county commission at a later date. You will not receiving, my understanding, a special notice. The attorney can address that. It'll just be on the agenda.
That's correct. So our code requires that the initial public hearing be noticed under certain rules, and then it will just be noticed like regular on the commission agenda
At a later date, okay.
at a later date. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So will they just monitor the website then to be able to find out?
Yes. Jeremy, are you on the computer? If you could find, there is the Utah Public Notice website, and if you just type that into your Google search engine, it will pull up the home, and then you can search for a government entity, and you can set up automatic notifications so that every time an agenda is posted for any public body, you will receive that notification in your email. That could be the Council of Governments. We have the COG, we have the Planning Commission, we have the County Commission, the Mountain Green Sewer Improvement District. Any public body that you would like to get notices for, you can sign up specifically for that on that website.
It works really well.
They'll send you an email and they'll have the agenda right in the email, and then they'll have links to supporting documents.
Okay, thank you. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but if you'd like to exit now, we ask that you please move away from the doors because the recording does pick up your voices. Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item is business and staff questions. We have a couple things. Member Murray has something he wishes to bring up, and then we also, they're going to be putting together a study group for 9 Springs And they're requesting 3 members of the planning commission to sit on that work, the study group. I was thinking maybe the commissioners from Mountain Green would like to be on that. I mean, Matt's not here, but I'm sure he would be of interest. And I don't know whether to put an alternate. I would always like to have 3 people there.
Would you like to be an alternate, Debbie?
I could be an alternate and pick up if one of you 3 cannot, if the 3 of you cannot be there, so that we always try to get 3 members there.
Because you were involved with the Snow Basin rezone, correct?
But, Wasatch Peaks.
Wasatch Peaks, not Snow Basin.
Yeah, no, the Snow Basin one.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll submit the names then. Judy, you got the names? Murray, Maloney, and Bishop, and then put me as an alternate. So, Member Murray, would you like to?
There was just, I sent an email out. I don't remember if I sent it to you, Josh, or not. I might know. Well, I was excluding you for a reason. Sorry.
Josh likes surprises.
Well, Josh is overwhelmed. Let's see. So, as I read the code, the Planning Commission makes a recommendation to the County Commission for commercial site plans. We just make a recommendation. We are not the approving body.
The land use authority for site plan is the county commission. The only thing that the planning commission has jurisdiction over with regards to site plan is approving metal. That's it.
I'm gonna recommend that we amend that to authorize or empower the planning commission to make that approval. I surveyed all of the counties around us, and every single one of them, according to their codes, the planning commission was the approving body. The benefit would be, rightly or wrongly, the county has a reputation of taking forever to get things approved, right?
I think that's been changing under me.
Great, that's awesome. I think that we could streamline without sacrificing quality of review, the process, and we would be able to get things reviewed and approved, or at least processed more quickly with fewer meetings. Staff, I think, would have less responsibility to prepare for 2 meetings instead of 1, and so I just suggested that we make a text amendment. And I'm sorry, I'll send you this email so you got whatever I'm talking about.
That's fine. I can tell you right off the bat that I would be against that text amendment. And so if you direct staff, I will prepare it, I will present it, but I will be recommending denial. I think the county commission, as the legislative body who have the decision and who answer to the voters, should be the ones on the hook for deciding commercial design standards and if a site plan meets those standards or not. That's just where I'm standing right now.
But if the design standards are there, and more or less it could be a checkbox, right? Where we say, okay, if you check the boxes, then it's just not a rubber stamp, but you're going to be. We could do similar things with this. I mean, it's not like they have more insight or background, or yes, they're answerable to the public, right? But in terms of making an informed and good decision, right? If the ordinance says it's us, then it's us. So I'm going to propose the amendment,
And I think under our code, the planning commission is a body. So if you get, a majority to direct staff,
right,
then staff will prepare that. Staff it's kind of nice with the checks and balances because staff could recommend approval like they did tonight, and you recommended denial, or vice versa, right?
I think the
And-
discussion is worthwhile.
Right, and then that discussion can be had.
And I'm sorry, I misspoke. It's not that I'm gonna propose an amendment.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
just-
suggesting that the
we
planning
as the
commission
body-
directs
right,
staff
yeah, I'm
as a
sorry,
body.
I
Yeah.
misspoke.
I just wanted to clarify that, just so there's no
Yeah,
confusion on it.
That's great.
If I could also provide clarification, the planning commission directed staff already to look at the commercial designs subchapter. And so that's what was pointed out before, where there's the materials that the planning commission specifically approved. Staff is still working on that, and so your suggestions could perhaps feed more into that directive from this body
I
to them.
don't think so. It's a
Okay.
completely different section.
Different.
Yeah, that's a completely different section. So the commercial design standards are under the commercial design standards section in the land use, below the land use table. This would be in the document and submission section, which is the site plan review.
One other thought that may or may not impact your recommendation or what you'd like to see happen, but a lot of times the reputation for why the county or planning may be slow to move something forward comes from the very people who refuse to submit a complete application. And so as soon as a complete application comes in, it's going to be in front of the planning commission within 6 weeks to maybe 10 weeks. And then after that, it's really only another 2 to 3 weeks before it goes to the county commission. So,
Golden West Credit Union is a good example of that. They submitted an incomplete application in February, and then over the course of 5 months, we tried to get additional information to make it a complete application, and it wasn't until June that we had a complete application and could finally review it, and we had them on a planning commission agenda within 2 months. That's getting all the reviews, fire, engineering, everything.
and many applicants will, take to the Facebook or social media or whatever and make certain claims.
Right.
But
And I
usually when
wasn't
you do a
intending
little,
I wasn't intending to badmouth staff or.
I
anybody
understand
else.
that. I'm just saying that the reality of
We
the
can-
situation
If they can
is.
take a step out without sacrificing quality.
And I totally agree with that. I was just making the point that, 2 to 3 weeks additional for the county commission isn't as long as the 5 months of just pulling teeth to get a complete application.
I would also recommend those cities that you've looked at that allow the planning commission to make that recommendation or make that approval. Check those cities to see if they have a separate design review board that is required to review those design standards to make sure that they are meeting it, because that is an additional step that a lot of cities and towns implement. So they have a separate design review board, which is appointed by the county commissioner or whatever to review specific design review for residential, commercial, etc. And it does add into that whole review cycle. So the planning commission may approve it, but behind the scenes, there may be a design review board that's also looking at it and prolonging that review period.
Thank you. Let's see. With the Golden West Credit Union site plan, there was discussion about cross-access between parcels, and I think there's value in somehow at least strongly encouraging that when adjacent parcels get developed, commercial parcels get developed, there's any number of benefits to that. And if it's already in code and I missed it, that's great.
There are other sections in the code that address access. I believe cross-access is already mentioned in the code. I can find those sections of the code fairly easily because I sent all of them to a developer a year and a half ago. So I can email you those sections so you can review those sections. I completely agree with you on the cross-access. In fact, a majority of the delay was Golden West Credit Union arguing with me about providing cross-access. They did not want to do it. That was one of the things I said, well, you need to work with your neighbor to provide that, and they did not want to do that.
So you did, your opinion is you didn't have the meat behind you to be able to more strongly not twist their arm, but
That would be
show
correct.
them the benefit to them of doing that.
Question
So-
on that though, Josh. If we required this cross access, would that put us in a position where we'd have to do, the county would have to do a traffic study instead of the developer?
No, we would require them to do a traffic study. The issue is not having the specific teeth to require something. I believe a lot of the sections in the code say may, which is not a mandate.
But for example, if there was something that was the shall, if they didn't want to provide the cross access, they would still have it on the 5,000 as was discussed. They just wouldn't have that. What they
Not pork chop.
informed
Not a
us
pork
was
chop.
not a pork chop. So,
It's still a pork chop.
but so, but I think that that's the point is, you know, if it's the may, well, we're just going to present this because we don't want to work with the neighbor, and they would still be able to get an approval, but it would just be less access, and so that would incentivize them to have more discussions if there was more teeth.
And I think the last thing that I brought up was the standing seam metal. What does it say? They can't. Vinyl siding and standing seam metal are prohibited for use as exterior building materials. And I would just suggest that maybe we say other than roofs, right? You can't. The standing seam roof can be approved, and Debbie mentioned that we don't want to say are approved because there may be some situations where it might not be the best.
If it's gonna be reflective, if it's,
There is a distinction in the code.
There is already a distinction in the code. In the multifamily section, it talks about exterior building materials, and so it would already be prohibited as a roof material in multifamily. It's the commercial section that includes building wall material, and so because of that, they were able to have the standing seam roof for their building. When I read the code, I didn't pick up on that one little word, and I had told them standing seam is prohibited. You're not able to do that, and so there was a discussion there as well.
So I'm sorry, I think I missed that. In the commercial code, standing seam is allowable as a roof material?
Based on the way that it's written, it is allowed because it's not an exterior wall, it's the roof. And the commercial section clearly calls out building exterior wall material.
Okay.
Whereas in the multifamily section, wall is not there.
So roof
Jeremy-
or wall is prohibited.
yeah, Jeremy brought up the multifamily, it's on your screen now. He's got it highlighted.
Exterior building materials.
Yeah.
So it's prohibited for all building in this section,
For
but in
multifamily.
commercial, it's prohibited for wall exterior building materials.
So
Yep, that one little word.
So you think it's clear as is, doesn't need more clarification, or?
Right. It just took a while to kind of see that distinction and pick out that one word. And it's not allowed, but it's not permitted. It's allowed with planning commission approval if the metal is of a high enough grade. It may be in there.
But high enough grade is not defined.
Yeah, it says a type of metal is of a high grade and provides architectural quality to the building. It's in
Yeah.
C right above that highlighted section.
And that's our determination if it's the,
That's right, because it specifically says the planning commission may approve, and so that's why that portion of the that portion was not included as the recommendation. You determined that and then recommended for the rest of the application.
For the record, any time where it says that a planning commission or staff can approve something if they can determine if it's a high grade, typically you would have criteria listed in there that would help define what constitutes high grade, and that's not in our code.
Jeremy, do you want to bring up the commercial design standards, go up just to show how it is written regarding standing seam? That it
It's G, I think. Is it F? No.
exterior wall building materials. So it, number 4.
Perfect. Thanks, Josh.
You're welcome.
Did you want to make a
I'm
motion?
gonna do, well, I'll do some more research. I think Josh got a good point
Okay.
in terms of, do they have separate design review?
Okay.
And for the record, I'm not against it. I just, based on our current code and layout, I would not propose that. That's just me. I've worked in communities where where staff were the approving authority. So it's not that it hasn't been done. I just think in those communities there was a design review board, there were technical reviews that we held, and so it wasn't just one staff member making the determination. There were multiple different boards and meetings that were held to do that.
So I think I will continue to dig deeper.
Dig deeper, okay.
If I were interested in a motion, or not a motion, a text amendment regarding ridge lines and east-facing slopes or view sheds, is the best option then to kind of come up with the text we want and then present it, or how does that work from like a staff standpoint?
No, you would recommend staff draft the text amendment. You would direct staff to do that. We would do the research, create the text, and then we would bring it forward. That's typically how you direct staff through your motion to make that text amendment.
If you find a good example, though, we don't
Discriminate.
reject it because
It's true.
more info is helpful. It's just less that we have to try and track down, or it gives us an example.
Yep, that's true.
Any more comments to staff, questions? Okay, seeing none?
Did you want to make that motion?
I'm gonna take Blaine's lead tonight. I'm gonna find some really good examples
Perfect.
and then figure out how I want to at the next meeting
Okay.
present it.
I do have a list of about 20 different text amendments that I have been directed to do over the past 6 months. And I can tell you right now, I haven't gotten to all of them.
But we are working on some of them, and
We're working on
and
some
I
of
think
them.
some are getting closer that have been a long time, and
think
some
it's
are
a-
easier than others. So
I was hoping to have the snow storage one done before it snowed.
thought I had Josh's maybe fire. I don't know if fire, and maybe I'll reach out to them to kind of speak on the legislative item tonight. I just wonder if they've looked at that, but maybe I'll reach out to them and see if they could watch the meeting and kind of talk about what that is up there.
I'd like to
Because I know
hear
that
that
they've
meeting.
had worries in certain areas. I don't know if that's one of them, but
Yeah.
certainly consider. Yeah, maybe I'll send it now, so I don't forget.
'Cause as I looked at it, the access easement just went to kind of where the well is, their parcel boundary.
That's correct.
And then the rest would have been a driveway, which has a different standard.
Based on that length, though, it would fire would have required it to be a
Right.
minimum of 20. It would have to have a turnaround at the end, and most likely it would have to support the 75,000-pound apparatus.
Yeah.
Which technically is a private lane. That's the private lane standards.
Okay. So,
Sorry, I got one question. Josh, brother Brent Porter mentioned something about tools for open space.
We in church? No.
Yeah, sorry. Mister. Are you aware, or
Can you
we-
repeat the question? I'm sorry. I was
Sorry.
too busy.
I had the
making a
answer.
joke.
It is in the area plans we were looking for. There are tools, and transfer of development rights is mentioned as a tool
Yeah,
to use, but it's very difficult.
I have seen it implemented in multiple communities that I plan for. It is a great tool. You can allow for selling portions of your property's density rights. So let's say you have 100 acres in A20. You technically have 5 development rights, because you got 5 lots, 1 per 20 acre, right? And then you would decide what areas of the county you want to designate where you can spend that density. So they would go to
receiving areas.
correct. And if you want to really, really preserve certain areas, you can give them a higher multiplier. So they may be in an area where you definitely want to preserve, and so you would give them maybe a 5 multiplier or a 3 multiplier. So that 5 density units would actually be 15. And then you can transfer that 15 to another area in the county where they would be able to develop the subdivision with those 15 lots. It would end up being clustered because then you wouldn't necessarily have to have all the acreage for all those lots. And so I have seen it implemented successfully. I am a proponent of it. I think it's a great tool. We just don't have it.
All we have it's in the general plan too, and the area plan, but it's not in our code.
Unless it's defined in the code, I don't have the tools to do it. Because the general plan might say that it's a good idea, and I would agree with that. I don't have the tools to implement it. It needs to be in the zoning ordinance.
And the developer in the receiving area would have to pay the landowner in the sending area for
Right.
the
So you would approach a
per
property
lot
owner
type.
in the areas you want to preserve. That developer would be paying the landowners for their development potential, and then they buy the rights, and then they would go to the areas where the density is wanted, and then they would spend that density in those areas.
And the conservation easement would be put on the sending area. The difficult is finding the entity to hold that conservation easement and to enforce it. The county had a situation with the PRUD ordinance that had the conservation easement, and the problem was finding that third-party entity to hold that conservation easement. So that would have to be worked out.
I would say it'd have to be the
Whether
county.
the county does.
It would have to be a government entity of some
Right.
sort.
But that's another code change we can put on his list.
Look at that job security, Josh.
I don't know about that.
He's gonna start limiting the amount of requests per meeting.
I might start limiting the number of items per meeting, but
But 2 for next week, for next 2 weeks.
no, we got, I think,
Oh, just text
how
amendment.
many? It's 5.
No, she talked about text
Text,
amendments.
we already got 2 out of tonight, so.
Yeah, you got 5 items on the next 6, including the continuance. It was continued, but we will renotice the entire thing. So we're gonna send out new notices just to make sure.
We have had this happen before going to the county commission meeting, but our code says just the first public hearing, which would be the county commission, so, or the
First
planning
meeting.
commission. And so the one that comes here, we want to have accurate, because that's the one that our code requires to be
That's correct.
publicly noticed. Otherwise, we give more notice than is required, just as a courtesy, and
Yeah, the map is extra. That's not required.
yeah.
He doesn't think so, but this, based on the attendees, any one of them could have appealed or done anything that would have just dragged this out so much farther than.
They could
Yeah,
have, and that's what I was
delay.
describing is, if, I think it's 30 days on some issues, 90 days on others, and I can't remember which one this would fall into off the top of my head. But either way, there's that period, and then if they challenge it and they're successful, but even a successful challenge is going to take months and months to get an adjudication, get in the
Stalled.
court schedule. So best practice is just renotice it, do the best we can on the front end, because if we do it right the first time, that's all that's required under our code.
If there's no more, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. Got your corrections in. I'm ready for a motion.
I don't have my paper for me. Madam Chair, I recommend we How do I say, approve the minutes of the last meeting.
The August 22nd meeting. Okay. I have a motion by Member Wilson. Do I have a second? And a second by Member McMillan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimous. Adjourn. Motion.
Chair, move that we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion by Member Little and second by Member Murray. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.